I couldn't handle the thought of dealing with a woman whose pregnancy made her look huge, while I would have to raise the baby alone and constantly see her big 9-month pregnant belly. He looked at me with disdain and had a smirk on his face, as if he was expecting this situation. Even though I knew this would happen, I quickly went to my room and came back with some divorce papers. I showed them to Anon without hesitation. He looked shocked and asked, "What's this all of a sudden?" "Well, it was your idea. Just sign it quickly. I'll submit it tomorrow," I said. His face turned red from embarrassment and anger at my words. "Watch carefully. I'll make you regret how you've treated and looked down on me," I warned him. "My name is Helen. I'm 26 years old and a housewife. 2 years ago, I used to work for a mobile company. I met Anon, my boss, when I was 24. We quickly fell in love and got married. Anon, who is 3 years older than me, was very reliable, especially when he was teaching me at work. I was really thankful for his clear guidance. We became good friends and often went out to dinner. When he asked me out, I was thrilled, especially since I had never dated anyone before. It's a bit embarrassing, but I was always more interested in cartoon characters than real men. Seeing my high school and college friends getting married one after another made me feel pressured. When I fell in love with Anton, I promised myself he would be my first and last love. I was thrilled when we started dating and then got married a year later. Anton was good-looking and popular with our female colleagues. I was proud to be his wife and enjoyed all the congratulations and well wishes we received. I felt incredibly happy, not knowing what would come next. The day after we officially registered our marriage, I mentioned to Anton, "Now that we're married, you expect me to quit my job, right?" Anton surprised me with his response. "I've always wanted my wife to focus only on home matters. Don't worry, I can support us with my income," he said. "But this is so sudden. You never told me this before," I replied. Anton had never mentioned wanting me to quit my job before we got married. I had taken the job based on my father's advice, and quitting without notice didn't feel right. I wanted to explain, but Anton's silent gaze made me stop talking. "I should have told you earlier, but it's too late now. Starting tomorrow, you don't need to go to work. I'll take care of the handover," Anton said. The news that I had to start staying home from work the next day hit me so suddenly that I felt dizzy. But Anton's decision was final, and since he had been my boss, I couldn't argue. Even though I had to leave my job without a proper goodbye, I was committed to making our marriage work. I focused on household tasks and tried hard to meet Anton's expectations. I cooked meals, especially his favorites, hoping for some recognition. Even though Anton never commented on the food, I longed for a bit of appreciation, especially after giving up my job and losing my previous recognition. One day I asked Anton, "Is my jacket clean? I have an important meeting tomorrow." "Yes, of course," he replied, showing his old-fashioned and commanding side. I reminded myself how lucky I was to be married to him and tried to meet his expectations. Without a personal income, I relied on Anton for everything. Our relationship often felt more like a boss and an employee than a husband and wife, but overall, our married life was relatively smooth. One day I fell ill and couldn't get out of bed. Feeling too weak to do housework, I planned to catch up on it the next day. Anton came into the room and, looking angry, demanded, "What are you doing? Get up and make some food," while kicking the blanket off me. I explained, "I'm sorry, I'm not feeling well." Instead of understanding, Anton scowled and said, "You don't work, and you're lying down just because you're a bit sick." Pathetic. I was shocked that he would insist on chores even when I was sick. I never expected him to be like this before we got married. Maybe I should have noticed, but it was too much. I ended up doing the chores while crying. A few days later, I realized I had missed my period and felt a rush of panic. I went to the drugstore and bought a pregnancy test, which turned out to be positive. Overjoyed, I cried tears of happiness and decided to tell Anton as soon as he came home from work. That night, Anton came home after midnight, smelling strongly of alcohol and staggering as he walked. I was surprised at how drunk he was, especially since he hadn't warned me. Despite having prepared dinner and wanting to share my pregnancy news, I decided to tell him right away. My excitement got the best of me, and I shared the news with my tipsy husband. "I haven't seen a doctor yet, so it's not confirmed," I said, trying to share our exciting news. But Anton's face turned dark as he replied, "A child? What have you done?" His tone was colder and more severe than I had ever heard. "I don't want a child. This is the worst. If you're going to have it, you'll have to take care of it yourself." His harsh words shocked me. He angrily undressed and went to the bathroom. I couldn't understand why he was being so irresponsible about our baby. The happiness I had felt moments ago was replaced with deep sadness. He had never said he didn't want children before. We hadn't been using contraception, so I assumed we both wanted a family. As I was hanging up Anton's jacket and about to take his shirt to the laundry, I noticed something in the pocket. "What's this?" It was a piece of paper that felt like a receipt. At first, I thought it was from tonight's event and was about to throw it away, but then I saw the name of the place. Is this a motel? My hand shook as I realized it was indeed a motel receipt. This discovery shocked me deeply. I wondered why Anon would behave this way. Marriage is supposed to be about love between two people, especially since we'd only been married for just over a year. I had spent years dreaming of romantic relationships but never really experienced one. I couldn't immediately accept this painful truth, but the idea of Anon cheating started to make sense. Were all my doubts about him using me as a servant while loving someone else true? Was this the reason he reacted so harshly to the news of my pregnancy? As I struggled with these thoughts, I started to feel nauseous and began to suspect that something was seriously wrong. It seemed like Anon had a mistress at my former workplace, and perhaps he wanted to marry me for stability rather than love. Everything started to make sense, and I felt like the line between reality and my imagination was blurring. Still, I couldn't ignore the hurtful things he said after I told him about the pregnancy. I decided to gather proof of Anton's infidelity. His cold behavior towards me made it clear that he was angry about the pregnancy. Even though I was dealing with morning sickness, he would deliberately eat strong-smelling foods around me and criticize my housework, making me redo things. It was tough on my pregnant body and heart, but I was determined to find out the truth. Anon never let go of his cell phone, even taking it with him to the bathroom, so I couldn't look at it. When I snuck into his room, it was always tidy, and there was nothing suspicious. He was very organized at work, and his desk was always spotless. It became clear that catching him red-handed would be difficult. I frequently checked his pockets for receipts or other evidence, but my search was coming up empty. I thought about hiring a private detective, but I didn't have the money for that. I was lost and thought about my situation when I got an unexpected phone call from my father, who rarely called me. "Hello, it's me, your dad. How are you?" he asked. I was surprised to hear from him, given how busy he usually is. "Dad, what's going on? Aren't you swamped with work?" "My employees have been doing well, so I'm not that busy," he said. As the CEO of a company in Canada, my father had always been a workaholic. I didn't have many childhood memories of spending time with him, but I respected his dedication. I wondered why he was calling now. "So what's up?" I asked, waiting for him to explain. My father then shared something shocking. "Is that really true?" I asked, stunned by what he revealed. "Yes, he's not the type to lie." "I want you to trust me," my father said, trying to reassure me. At first, I was in shock and couldn't respond, but as I processed the information, I felt a sense of relief. "Thank you, Dad. I'll do my best," I said gratefully before ending the call. My investigation was finally showing results, and I felt a mix of relief and anger because of the ongoing tension with Anon. Despite being pregnant, Anon remained distant, which only deepened my resentment towards him. Months went by, and our relationship stayed strained. Then something happened that shattered our life. As I approached my 9th month of pregnancy, I lived in constant fear around Anon, trying to avoid him and leading a quiet, restricted life. One evening, while serving dinner as usual, Anon came home, and we sat at the dining table. As I ate silently, Anon suddenly slammed his fork down. "What is this? It's tasteless," Anon yelled, throwing the food I had cooked onto the floor. I was shocked by his outburst and struggled to understand what was happening. My frustration grew as I saw my meal discarded. Anon complained that my cooking had been bland recently, but I had been using less seasoning to make the meals healthier for everyone during my pregnancy. If he didn't like the taste, he could have added some salt himself. There was no need to throw the food on the floor. As I was about to speak up, Anon sneered and made a hurtful remark. "I don't want a woman with a belly like a monster. You'll have to raise the kid by yourself," he said with malice and a cruel smile. I had feared this day might come, though I had hoped for a different outcome. Quickly, I went to my room, grabbed some documents, and returned to show them to Anon. "Here are the divorce papers," I said, pushing the documents towards him. Anon looked stunned and asked, "What the hell? What's this all of a sudden?" "Well, it was your idea. Just sign it quickly. I'll submit it tomorrow," I said. I had been thinking about divorce ever since I suspected Anton's infidelity. With a baby on the way, I wasn't sure if I could manage on my own, but now I had a new plan. My determination seemed to anger Anon. His face turned red with rage. "Just wait. I'll make you regret every moment you looked down on me and tried to control me. Do you think you can manage without me? You'll have a baby to care for, and you'll regret it." I stayed firm and unshaken. "I'll be fine. Don't worry about me," I assured him. Maybe annoyed by my resolve, Anon grabbed the divorce papers and started filling them out. "Here you go. If this is what you want, it's yours," he said. "Thank you," I replied. Anon probably didn't think I would actually go through with it, as he handed the papers over without much fuss. The next day, I submitted the divorce papers and left the house. I knew he'd be surprised when he came home from work to find out. After that, I moved to my parents' home. My father had returned to the US from Canada and suggested I stay with them. It was the right choice for me as I was fed up with life with Anon. I was deeply grateful to my father for his support. On the day I left our home, Anon called me 3 times, but I ignored each one. Eventually, he stopped calling. It became clear that I meant very little to him. He was probably happy with his mistress, and might even be planning to remarry. I decided to move on from Anon. 6 months later, I had a baby who was born safely, and I was living happily with my parents. While enjoying this peaceful life, Anon called me again. At first, I ignored his calls, but after he persisted, I had no choice but to answer. "Hello, what do you want now?" I asked, tired of his calls. "Hey, what's going on? Why were you on that show? And since when are you the daughter of a CEO with millions of dollars?" Anton's voice was filled with surprise and anger. It turned out he had seen a TV show about my family's lifestyle, which aired after I moved back with my parents. After returning to my family's home, I was approached by a TV station because of my father's role as CEO of a major global tech company. The show featured the luxurious lifestyle of CEO families, and they filmed at our house, discussing our family's wealth, which was estimated at around $10 million. I never expected Anon would see that show, but the reach of television is truly powerful. "Oh, by the way, I didn't mention that I inherited $33 million, which is why I was able to divorce you," I said. My father had told me about this inheritance, and it gave me the confidence to live comfortably even after leaving Anon. Anton's reaction was immediate and furious. "What? That's unfair. Why didn't you tell me about this before? Half of it is mine, right? Give me the money now." I replied calmly, just as I suspected after seeing the show. "All you can think about is getting money from me. Gifts from parents aren't included in the property division, and don't forget your own actions." Anon looked confused and asked, "What are you talking about?" "I'm tired of your anger, Anon. You called me. You should know you can't blame me for what you did. You cheated, didn't you? With your new wife, who's a junior from your company? You started seeing her even before we were married," I said. Anon was clearly shocked by what I knew. I finally had the upper hand. "Did you think I wouldn't find out? My father has many connections in your company, and one of them told me about your affair. I haven't mentioned it before, but I will be demanding child support," I declared. Anon, still in denial, argued, "Stop kidding. Why should I pay child support? It's all your fault. You got pregnant on your own and didn't keep up with the housework. It's your fault." I was stunned by Anton's refusal to take responsibility and his blame shifting. I couldn't believe I had ever been married to someone so unreasonable. It was clear I had made the right decision to leave him. "Anon, I'm broke. My wife spent all my money, and now I'm in debt," he lamented, but I wasn't moved by his pleas. I was angry and incredulous at his refusal to acknowledge his mistakes. I had no desire to deal with someone so unreasonable ever again. Gripping my phone tightly, I prepared to end the conversation. "What are you talking about? Do you even realize how ridiculous you sound? I never want to deal with you again. I'll have my lawyer handle the child support. Don't call me again, and you won't see the child anymore. Goodbye." After expressing my frustration, I quickly hung up the phone. I blocked Anton's number, took a deep breath, and felt a sense of relief. It was over now, and I hoped I wouldn't receive any more calls from him. I was determined to protect my peaceful life. Just then, I heard my baby crying from the other room and rushed to comfort them. It turned out that Anon started paying child support every month. A former colleague of mine mentioned that Anton's new wife was a big spender, and he ended up using debts to cover his living expenses. It seemed Anon had hoped to get a share of my inheritance by reaching out to me, but since he didn't get any money from me, he was now facing more expenses than his income could handle. He struggled, possibly because things were going poorly or because he couldn't stand being looked down upon by his colleagues. Adding to his troubles, he only started searching for a new job after leaving his previous one, which led him to financial difficulties. Hearing this didn't make me feel sorry for him. I felt he deserved the hardships he was facing. The harsh words and cold behavior he showed me were unforgettable, and I hoped he got what he deserved. Meanwhile, I'm enjoying life with my parents and my baby. With no financial worries, I'm excited about the future, especially since my father mentioned passing the company on to me. I'm ready to work hard, just like my dedicated father.
The moment I heard those words, my world shattered like fine china hitting a marble floor. I stood there frozen in disbelief as the truth echoed through the room. "What do you mean you were never married to Dad?" Mark's voice cracked, his face a mix of confusion and betrayal. Esther, my mother-in-law, sat rigid in her armchair, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the fabric. "It was a different time, Mark. We were in love, but circumstances weren't right." I watched my husband's face contort with emotions I'd never seen before. Anger, hurt, and something else, a dawning realization that everything he thought he knew about his family was built on a lie. "How could you keep this from me for 37 years? Mark demanded, his voice rising. "Did Dad even know?" Esther's lips thinned into a tight line. "Of course he knew. We agreed it was best to keep it quiet, for your sake." I couldn't help but scoff, drawing both their attention. For his sake, or for yours? Esther's eyes narrowed, fixing me with a look that could freeze hell itself. "This doesn't concern you, Molly. It's a family matter." "I am family," I shot back, my hand instinctively moving to my swollen belly. "Or have you forgotten that I'm carrying your grandchild?" Mark stepped between us, always the peacemaker. "Mom, Molly's right. She's part of this family now." Esther's nostrils flared, but she said nothing. I could see the gears turning behind her eyes, probably plotting her next move. "I can't believe this," Mark muttered, running a hand through his hair. "All those times you criticized other people for having children out of wedlock. The hypocrisy." "It was a different time," Esther repeated, her voice taking on a defensive edge. "You can't judge me by today's standards." I couldn't hold back anymore. "But you judge everyone else by them, don't you, Esther?" The room fell silent, tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Mark looked between us, torn between his mother and his wife. "I think," I said, breaking the silence, "that we need some time to process this. Esther, maybe it's best if you go home for now." For a moment I thought she might refuse, but then she stood, smoothing out her impeccable pantsuit. "Of course, I understand this is a lot to take in. We'll talk more later, Mark." As she gathered her things, I couldn't help but feel a small thrill of victory. For once, Esther was leaving without having the last word. Once the front door closed behind her, Mark collapsed onto the couch, his head in his hands. I sat beside him, unsure whether to offer comfort or give him space. "I can't believe she lied to me my whole life," he mumbled through his fingers. I placed a hand on his back, feeling the tension in his muscles. "I'm so sorry, Mark. I can't imagine how you must be feeling right now." He looked up at me, his eyes red-rimmed. "How am I supposed to trust anything she says now? What else has she been lying about?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. I thought about all the times Esther had manipulated situations, always coming out on top. How many of those were based on lies? "I don't know," I admitted, "but we'll figure it out together." Mark nodded, then suddenly sat up straight. "Oh God, what about the baby? What if there are genetic issues we don't know about, because I don't know my real family history?" The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Our baby, due in just a few months, could be at risk because of Esther's lies. "We need to talk to the doctor," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "Get some tests done, just to be safe." As Mark reached for his phone to make the call, I felt a sharp pain in my abdomen. I gasped, clutching my belly. "Molly?" Mark's eyes widened with concern. "What's wrong?" I tried to speak, but another wave of pain washed over me. This couldn't be happening. Not now. It was too soon. 6 months earlier, I stood in the driveway of our new home, a quaint 2-story with a wraparound porch. The excitement bubbling in my chest was tempered by the sight of Esther's car, pulling up behind the moving truck. "Oh, isn't this lovely?" Esther exclaimed, emerging from her car like a queen from a carriage. "Mark, darling, you've done well." I bristled at her words. We'd chosen this house together, but of course in Esther's world only Mark's opinion mattered. "Thanks, Mom," Mark said, beaming. "Want the grand tour?" Before I could interject, Esther had linked her arm through Mark's, and they were heading inside. I sighed, resigning myself to following in their wake. As we moved from room to room, Esther's running commentary grated on my nerves. "This wallpaper simply must go," she declared in the living room. "The kitchen needs updating," she tutted, running a finger along the countertop. When we reached the master bedroom, she turned to Mark with a saccharine smile. "Darling, this room is perfect for a nursery. When are you two planning on giving me grandchildren?" I felt my cheeks burn. "We're not quite ready for that yet, Esther." She waved a dismissive hand. "Nonsense. There's no time like the present. You're not getting any younger, dear." Mark chuckled, seemingly oblivious to my discomfort. "Mom's right, Molly. We should start thinking about it." I bit my tongue, not wanting to start an argument on our first day in our new home. As the day wore on, Esther's presence became increasingly suffocating. She directed the movers, rearranged furniture, and even started unpacking boxes without asking. Esther, I said, trying to keep my voice even, we appreciate your help, but Mark and I can handle this. She patted my cheek condescendingly. Oh, sweetie, I'm just trying to make things easier for you both. That's what family does. Before I could respond, Mark called from the kitchen. Hey, Mom, where do you think we should put the china cabinet? And just like that, she was off again, leaving me standing amid half-unpacked boxes, feeling like an outsider in my own home. As evening approached, I hoped Esther would take her leave. Instead, she settled into an armchair, looking far too comfortable. Mom, Mark said, it's getting late. Don't you want to head home? Esther's face fell. Oh, but it's such a long drive. I was hoping I could stay the night, just until you're properly settled. I opened my mouth to object, but Mark beat me to it. Of course you can stay, Mom. Right, Molly? Trapped, I nodded, forcing a smile. Sure, we can make up the guest room. As I trudged upstairs to prepare the bed, I heard Esther's voice floating up from below. Mark, darling, I've been thinking. It would be so much easier if I had a key to your new place. Just in case of emergencies, you understand. My blood ran cold. I crept down the stairs, listening intently. I don't know, Mom, Mark said, hesitation in his voice. Molly might not be comfortable with that. But what if something happened to her? Esther pressed. Wouldn't you want me to be able to get in and help? There was a long pause, and I held my breath. I suppose you're right, Mark finally conceded. I'll have a copy made for you tomorrow. I stumbled back up the stairs, my mind reeling. How could he agree to that without even discussing it with me? Later that night, as Mark and I lay in bed, I tried to broach the subject. Honey, about your mom having a key. Mark yawned, already half asleep. It's just for emergencies, Moll. No big deal. But it was a big deal. As I lay there in the dark, listening to Mark's steady breathing, I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd just opened Pandora's box. Little did I know, that key would become the source of countless invasions of our privacy, unexpected visits, and a gradual erosion of the boundaries between our lives and Esther's. As I drifted off to sleep, a seed of resentment took root in my heart, one that would grow and flourish in the months to come. The sound of a key turning in the lock jolted me awake. I glanced at the clock, 7:30 a.m. Mark had already left for work, and I was supposed to be resting. Doctor's orders. Molly, dear? Are you up? Esther's voice rang through the house. I groaned, pulling the covers over my head. It had been like this for weeks now, ever since I'd been signed off work due to complications with my pregnancy. Esther had taken it upon herself to help, which apparently meant barging in at all hours and treating me like her personal maid. There you are, Esther chirped, throwing open my bedroom door without knocking. Still in bed? Psst. That's not good for the baby, you know. I bit back a retort. Good morning, Esther. I was just about to get up. She clucked her tongue. Well, hurry along. I've brought some laundry that needs doing. My jaw dropped. Your laundry? Of course, dear. You're not working now, so you have plenty of time to help out the family. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Oh, and I'll be staying for lunch. Nothing fancy. A nice pot roast will do. Before I could protest, she was gone, leaving behind the scent of her overpowering perfume and a mountain of expectations. I dragged myself out of bed, fighting waves of nausea. As I made my way to the kitchen, I found Esther had made herself at home, rifling through our cupboards. Molly, where do you keep your good china? The ones I gave you for your wedding, she asked, not bothering to look at me. We use those for special occasions, Esther. Regular plates are fine for lunch. She turned, fixing me with a disapproving stare. Nonsense. Every meal should be special when family is involved. Now be a dear and set the table while I start on the roast. For the next few hours, I was caught in a whirlwind of Esther's demands. I did her laundry, cleaned the house to her exacting standards, and even polished the silver, all while she supervised from the comfort of our couch. By the time lunch was ready, I was exhausted and my back ached fiercely. I lowered myself into a chair, hoping for a moment's rest. Molly, Esther's sharp voice cut through my fatigue. Don't just sit there. The gravy needs stirring. I gritted my teeth. Esther, I need to rest. The doctor said. Oh, doctors these days coddle pregnant women too much, she interrupted. In my day, we worked right up until delivery. It builds character. As I struggled to my feet, a wave of dizziness washed over me. I gripped the table for support, my vision blurring. Esther, I gasped. I don't feel well. I think I need to lie down. She waved a dismissive hand. You're fine, just a bit of low blood sugar. Finish setting the table and you'll feel better after you eat. I wanted to argue, to stand up for myself, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I mechanically went through the motions of serving lunch, my body on autopilot, while my mind screamed in protest. As we ate, Esther dominated the conversation, criticizing everything from my cooking to my choice of prenatal vitamins. I pushed the food around my plate, too nauseous to eat. You know, Esther said between bites, I've been thinking, once the baby comes I should move in for a while, to help out. The fork slipped from my fingers, clattering loudly against the china. What? Well, it's obvious you'll need the help, she continued, oblivious to my horror, and Mark agrees it's a wonderful idea. My world tilted on its axis. Mark had agreed, without even discussing it with me? No, I whispered, then louder. No, absolutely not. Esther's eyes narrowed. I beg your pardon? I said no, I repeated, finding strength I didn't know I had. This is our home, our baby. We don't need you to move in. Esther's face darkened. Now listen here, young lady. But whatever she was about to say was cut off by a sharp pain that ripped through my abdomen. I cried out, doubling over. Esther, I gasped, something's wrong. The baby? I think I need to go to the hospital. For a moment, Esther just stared at me, her face a mask of disbelief and annoyance. Then, as another contraction hit, reality seemed to sink in. Oh dear, she muttered, reaching for her phone. I suppose we'd better call Mark. As I sat there, scared and in pain, I realized with startling clarity that I was utterly alone in this moment, and I knew, with bone-deep certainty, that something had to change. The hospital scare had been a false alarm, but it left me shaken. As I lay in bed that night, Mark snoring softly beside me, I knew I had to confront him about Esther's behavior. The thought of having this conversation made my stomach churn, but I couldn't take it anymore. The next morning, I steeled myself as Mark prepared for work. Honey, we need to talk about your mother. Mark froze, his tie half knotted. What about her? I took a deep breath. She's been overbearing. Yesterday she showed up unannounced, made me do her laundry, and then tried to force me to cook when I wasn't feeling well. Mark's brow furrowed. Mom's just trying to help, Molly. You know how she is. That's not help, Mark. It's control, and it's affecting my health and our babies, he sighed, finishing his tie. You're overreacting. Mom's always been like this. It's just her way of showing she cares. I felt a surge of frustration. Overreacting? Mark, she told me she's planning to move in after the baby's born. Did you know about this? His silence was all the answer I needed. You agreed to this without even talking to me? I couldn't keep the hurt from my voice. Mark had the decency to look sheepish. I didn't exactly agree. I just didn't disagree when she suggested it. That's the same thing, I exploded. This is our home, our family. We should be making these decisions together. Look, Mark said, checking his watch. I'm going to be late for work. Can we discuss this later? I stared at him in disbelief. No, we can't discuss this later. This is important, Mark. Your mother is taking over our lives and you're letting her. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident on his face. What do you want me to do, Molly? She's my mother. We're supposed to honor our parents. Honor, yes, but not at the expense of our own family, I countered. She treats me like a servant in my own home. She undermines every decision I make about the baby. And you just stand by and let it happen. Mark's face hardened. That's not fair. Mom's been through a lot since Dad died. She needs us. And what about what I need? I asked, my voice breaking. What about our baby? He shook his head, grabbing his briefcase. You're being selfish, Molly. Mom's family too. We can't just shut her out. As he headed for the door, I called after him. If you walk out now, you're choosing her over us. The slamming door was his only response. I sank onto the couch, tears streaming down my face. How had it come to this? I loved Mark, but his blind devotion to his mother was tearing us apart. The sound of a key in the lock made me freeze. Please, not now, I thought desperately. Molly? Esther's voice rang out. I brought breakfast, and I thought we could go over some nursery designs. I have some wonderful ideas. As Esther bustled into the living room, chattering away, something inside me snapped. I stood up, my hands clenched at my sides. Esther, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, I need you to leave. She blinked, taken aback. I beg your pardon? You heard me, I continued, finding strength in my words. This is my home, and I need you to leave. Now. Esther's face darkened. Now see here, young lady, I am your mother-in-law, and I have every right. No, I interrupted. You don't. You have no right to barge in here whenever you want, to treat me like your personal maid, or to make decisions about my child. She gasped, clutching her pearls. How dare you speak to me like that? Wait until Mark hears about this. As she reached for her phone, I made a decision that would change everything. Go ahead, I said, my voice cold. Call him. But know this, if you try to manipulate this situation like you always do, I will leave. I will take my baby, and I will leave. Esther's hand froze midair, her eyes wide with shock. For the first time since I'd known her, she was speechless. In that moment, standing there facing down my tormentor, I felt a surge of power. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. Things were about to change. The days following my confrontation with Esther were eerily quiet. No surprise visits, no incessant phone calls, but the tension in the house was palpable. Mark barely spoke to me, leaving for work early and returning late. I knew the storm was coming. I just didn't expect it to hit quite so hard. It was a Friday evening when I felt the first twinge. I was alone, as usual, Mark having texted that he was working late. The pain started as a dull ache, but within an hour, it had intensified to sharp rhythmic contractions. No, I muttered, cradling my belly. It's too soon. I reached for my phone with shaking hands, dialing Mark's number. Straight to voicemail. Of course. Another contraction hit, stronger this time. I gasped, doubling over. This was happening, ready or not. In desperation, I called the one person I knew would answer. Esther, I need help. The baby's coming. Her voice was cool, detached. Are you sure it's not just false labor again? I bit back a retort. I'm sure. Please, can you come? There was a long pause before she replied. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Those 20 minutes felt like an eternity. By the time I heard Esther's key in the lock, I was on the floor, unable to move. Oh, for heaven's sake, Esther tutted, surveying the scene. Let's get you up. We need to time these contractions properly before rushing off to the hospital. I stared at her in disbelief. Esther, something's wrong. It hurts too much. We need to go now. She waved a dismissive hand. Childbirth is supposed to hurt, dear. Now let's get you more comfortable. I'll make some tea and we'll wait for things to progress naturally. As she bustled around the kitchen, I felt a rush of warm liquid between my legs. Looking down, I saw blood. Panic seized me. Esther! I called out, my voice shrill with fear. I'm bleeding. She appeared in the doorway, a look of annoyance on her face. Really, Molly, there's no need for dramatics. A little blood is perfectly normal. But as she got closer, her expression changed. Oh my, she murmured, her face paling. Perhaps we should call an ambulance. The next few hours passed in a blur of pain and fear. The ambulance ride, the frantic voices of paramedics, the harsh lights of the emergency room. Through it all, one thought kept repeating in my mind. Where was Mark? It wasn't until I was being wheeled into the operating room that he finally appeared, breathless and disheveled. Molly, I'm so sorry. I just got the messages. What's happening? Before I could respond, a nurse intercepted him. Sir, we need to prep your wife for emergency surgery. The baby's in distress. As they pushed me through the double doors, I caught a glimpse of Esther grabbing Mark's arm, pulling him close to whisper something in his ear. The doors swung shut, cutting off my view. The anesthesia began to take effect, but my mind was racing. What had Esther said to Mark? Why hadn't he been there? And most importantly, would my baby be okay? As I drifted into unconsciousness, I made a silent vow. If we both made it through this, things would change. No more passive acceptance, no more putting everyone else's needs before my own and my child's. The steady beep of the heart monitor faded away, replaced by a single, crystal-clear thought. This ends now. When I woke up, groggy and disoriented, the first thing I saw was a nurse holding a tiny blanket-wrapped bundle. Congratulations, she said softly. You have a beautiful baby girl. Relief washed over me, followed quickly by a fierce, protective love I'd never experienced before. As I held my daughter for the first time, I knew with absolute certainty that I would do anything to keep her safe and happy. The sound of raised voices outside my room caught my attention. I recognized Mark and Esther, arguing in hushed but heated tones. Can't believe you weren't there for her, Esther was saying. If I hadn't been there... You're right, Mom, Mark replied, his voice thick with emotion. I should have been there. I've been a terrible husband. As their voices faded down the hallway, I looked down at my sleeping daughter. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. For both our sakes, it was time to take control of our lives, no matter the cost. The days following my daughter's birth were a blur of exhaustion, pain, and conflicting emotions. I named her Lily, after my grandmother, a small act of defiance against Esther's insistence on family names from her side. Mark hovered awkwardly, clearly unsure of his place. Esther, on the other hand, had no such reservations. She swept into my hospital room like a hurricane, rearranging flowers, adjusting my pillows, and cooing over Lily in a way that set my teeth on edge. Oh, she looks just like Mark when he was a baby, Esther gushed, cradling Lily. We'll have to get her christened in the family gown, of course. I opened my mouth to object, but a sharp look from Mark silenced me. I sank back into my pillows, feeling defeated. It was during one of these moments, when Esther had momentarily left to get coffee, that a nurse named Sarah entered my room. She must have sensed my distress because she paused in her duties to really look at me. Are you all right, Mrs. Thompson? She asked gently. Something in her kind eyes broke the dam I'd been holding back. Tears spilled down my cheeks as I shook my head. Sarah pulled up a chair, her voice low and soothing. Do you want to talk about it? And so, in hushed tones, I poured out everything. Esther's domineering behavior, Mark's indifference, my fears for Lily's future. Sarah listened without judgment, her face a mix of concern and understanding. When I finished, she took my hand in hers. Molly, what you're describing? It's not normal. It's not healthy. You have the right to set boundaries, to protect yourself and your daughter. Her words hit me like a thunderbolt. But how? I whispered. They don't listen. They don't care how I feel. Sarah's eyes hardened with resolve. Then make them listen. You're stronger than you think, Molly. You brought a new life into this world under incredible stress. That strength is still in you. As she spoke, I felt something shift inside me. A spark of the fire I'd lost over the months of Esther's tyranny reignited. You're right, I said, my voice growing stronger. I can't let this continue, for Lily's sake, if not my own. Sarah squeezed my hand. That's the spirit. Remember, you're not alone. There are resources, support groups. The door swung open, cutting her off. Esther bustled in, followed by a harried-looking Mark. Oh, good, you're awake, Esther chirped. We've been discussing the nursery. I think we should redecorate completely. That silly theme you chose simply won't do. I felt the old familiar urge to acquiesce, to keep the peace. But then I looked at Lily, sleeping peacefully in her bassinet, and Sarah's words echoed in my mind. No, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Esther blinked, clearly taken aback. I beg your pardon? I said no, I repeated, louder this time. The nursery stays as it is. Lily is my daughter, and I will make the decisions about her care. The room fell silent. Mark looked between Esther and me, his face a mask of confusion. Esther's expression darkened. Now see here, young lady, she began, but I cut her off. No, you see here, I said, sitting up straighter despite the pain. This ends now. When we leave this hospital, things are going to change. No more unannounced visits, no more taking over our lives. If you can't respect our boundaries, you won't be welcome in our home. Esther gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Mark, are you going to let her speak to me this way? All eyes turned to Mark. He stood frozen, his gaze darting between his mother and me. In that moment, I saw our entire future hanging in the balance. Mark, I said softly, it's time to choose. Your family or your mother's control. You can't have both anymore. The tension in the room was palpable as we waited for Mark's response. Whatever he said next would determine the course of our lives, and I was prepared for either outcome. As Mark opened his mouth to speak, I steeled myself for the fight ahead. No matter what, I knew one thing for certain. I would never let anyone, not Esther, not even Mark, come between me and my daughter again. The tension in the hospital room was suffocating as we waited for Mark's response. His eyes darted between Esther and me, his face a mask of indecision. Finally he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I need time to think. Esther's triumphant smile made my blood boil. She knew she'd won this round. Of course, darling, she cooed, patting Mark's arm. Why don't we step outside and let Molly rest? As they left the room, I felt a surge of anger and determination. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The next few days passed in a blur of sleepless nights and tense silences. Mark spent most of his time at work or with Esther, leaving me alone with Lily and my thoughts. But with each passing day, my resolve grew stronger. Finally, the day came for us to leave the hospital. As we pulled into our driveway, I saw Esther's car already parked there. My jaw clenched. "Mark," I said, my voice steady, "I meant what I said at the hospital. Things need to change." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Can we not do this now? Mom's just here to help." "No," I said firmly. "We do this now, before we step into that house." Mark's shoulders slumped in defeat. "Fine. What do you want?" I took a deep breath. "I want Esther to leave. Now. And I want her key back." His head snapped up, eyes wide with disbelief. "Molly, you can't be serious. She's my mother." "And I'm your wife," I countered. "The mother of your child. It's time to choose, Mark. Us or her." Before he could respond, the front door swung open. Esther emerged, arms outstretched. "There you are. I was getting worried. Come on in. I've got dinner ready and the nursery all set up." I felt something snap inside me. Months of pent-up frustration and anger came pouring out. "No, Esther," I said, my voice ringing clear across the lawn. "You need to leave. Now." Esther's face contorted with rage. "How dare you speak to me like that? Mark, are you going to let her?" "Stop it," I shouted, surprising even myself with the force of my words. "Both of you, just stop. I've had enough." I turned to Mark, my eyes blazing. "For months, I've watched you choose her over me, over our family. Well, no more. Either she goes or we do." Mark's face paled. "Molly, please, don't do this." "Do what?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Stand up for myself? For our daughter? Someone has to, because you sure as hell won't." Esther stepped forward, her voice sickly sweet. "Now, Molly, dear, you're clearly overwrought. Why don't you go inside and rest? Mark and I will take care of everything." Something inside me snapped. I whirled on her, all pretense of politeness gone. "You," I snarled, "do not get to decide anything in my life anymore. This is my home, my family. You are not welcome here." Esther gasped, clutching her pearls. "Mark, are you going to let her speak to me this way?" We both turned to Mark, who stood frozen between us. His eyes darted back and forth like a cornered animal. I can't," he stammered. In that moment, I knew. I saw our entire future laid out before me. Years of manipulation, of being second best, of watching my daughter grow up under Esther's toxic influence. "Fine," I said, my voice cold. "If you won't make a choice, I'll make it for you." I turned on my heel, marching towards the house with Lily in my arms. Behind me, I heard Esther's triumphant laugh, Mark's weak protests. As I crossed the threshold, I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. From this moment on, everything would change. I closed the door behind me, shutting out their voices. In the sudden silence, I looked down at Lily's sleeping face and made a silent vow. No matter what it took, I would build a better life for us. A life free from manipulation and control. A life where we could both thrive. And if Mark and Esther couldn't be part of that life, well, that was their choice to make. The locksmith arrived early the next morning. As he worked, I cradled Lily close, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Each turn of the screwdriver felt like another step towards freedom. "All done, ma'am," the locksmith said, handing me a set of new keys. "Nobody's getting in here without your say-so now." I thanked him, my voice steadier than I felt. As his van pulled away, I saw Mark's car turn onto our street. My stomach clenched, but I stood my ground. Mark's face fell as he tried his key in the new lock. "Molly, what's going on?" I opened the door but blocked the entrance. "We need to talk, Mark, without your mother." His eyes darted past me, searching the house. "Where is she?" "Gone," I said firmly. "And she's not coming back. Not unless you're ready to make some real changes." Mark's face clouded with anger. "You can't just—" "I can," I interrupted. "And I have. This is our home, Mark. Ours and Lily's. It's time you decided if you want to be part of that or not." For a moment I thought he might argue. Instead, his shoulders slumped in defeat. "What do you want from me, Molly?" I took a deep breath. "I want you to choose us, to stand up to your mother, to be a partner and a father, not just a son." Mark ran a hand through his hair, his face a mask of conflict. "I don't know if I can do that." My heart sank, but I steeled myself. "Then I don't know if I can stay in this marriage." His head snapped up, eyes wide with shock. "What are you saying?" I reached into my pocket, pulling out the envelope I'd prepared. I'm saying it's time to make a choice, Mark. Us or her. If you can't choose us, then these are divorce papers. Mark staggered back as if I'd struck him. Divorce? Molly, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious, I said, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. I love you, Mark, but I love our daughter more, and I won't let her grow up in this toxic environment. As if on cue, Lily began to fuss in my arms. I bounced her gently, never taking my eyes off Mark. He stood there, frozen, for what felt like an eternity. Then, slowly, he reached for the envelope. My heart shattered as he took it, but I held my ground. This was it, the moment that would define our future. Mark stared at the envelope for a long moment. Then, to my shock, he tore it in half. No, he said, his voice stronger than I'd heard it in months. No divorce. You're right, Molly. It's time I stood up and be the husband and father you both deserve. Relief flooded through me, but I tempered it with caution. And your mother? Mark's jaw clenched. I'll talk to her, set boundaries, make it clear that our family comes first. As if summoned by our words, Esther's car screeched into the driveway. She stormed up the path, face contorted with rage. What is the meaning of this? She demanded. Mark, why is my key not working? I tensed, ready for battle, but to my amazement, Mark stepped in front of me. Mom, he said, his voice firm, we need to talk. Things are going to change around here. Esther's face paled. What nonsense has she been filling your head with? No nonsense, Mark replied. Just the truth. It's time for you to step back and let us live our lives. As Mark continued, laying down new rules and boundaries, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to hope. Later that night, as Mark and I sat on the porch, Lily sleeping peacefully between us, I marveled at how much had changed in just one day. I'm proud of you, I said softly, taking Mark's hand. He squeezed my fingers. I'm sorry it took me so long to see what was happening. But I promise, things will be different from now on. As we sat there, watching the stars come out, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, setbacks, moments of doubt. But for the first time in a long time, I was excited for the future. A future where we were a true family, supporting each other, growing together. A future where Lily would grow up surrounded by love, not manipulation. A future that was ours to shape, free from the shadows of the past. As I looked at Mark, then down at our sleeping daughter, I smiled. Whatever came next, we would face it together. And that, I realized, was all I'd ever wanted. The key scraped in the lock, a sound that should have been comforting after a long business trip. Instead, it sent a chill down my spine. Something was off. I pushed open the door, my rolling suitcase forgotten behind me. The entryway was different. Gone were my carefully curated family photos, replaced by gaudy floral prints I'd never choose in a million years. Mark, I called out, my voice echoing in the strangely quiet house. Are you home? A familiar figure emerged from the kitchen, but it wasn't my husband. It was Linda, my mother-in-law, wearing an apron and holding a wooden spoon like she owned the place. Hannah, dear, you're back early, she chirped, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. I blinked, trying to process the scene before me. Linda, what are you doing here? Where's Mark? She waved the spoon dismissively. Oh, Mark's working late. I thought I'd come over and spruce things up a bit. This place needed a woman's touch. My jaw clenched. A woman's touch? Linda, I live here. This is my home. Linda's eyes narrowed slightly. Well, it's Mark's home too, isn't it? And as his mother, I have every right to help out. I took a deep breath, counting to 10 in my head. Where are my things? The photos, the artwork? Oh, those old things. Linda interrupted. I put them away for safekeeping. You'll thank me later, dear. Now come have some tea. I've made your favorite cookies. I stood rooted to the spot, my mind reeling. This wasn't the first time Linda had overstepped, but this was beyond anything I could have imagined. Just then the front door opened, and Mark walked in. His eyes widened as he took in the scene. Hannah, you're home early, he said, glancing nervously between his mother and me. I turned to him, my voice low and controlled. Mark, what's going on here? He ran a hand through his hair, a telltale sign of his discomfort. Mom just wanted to help out while you were away. She thought it would be a nice surprise. A surprise? I echoed, my voice rising. Mark, she's completely changed our home without my permission. Linda stepped forward, placing a hand on Mark's arm. Now, Hannah, there's no need to get upset. I was only trying to help. I whirled on her. Help? You call this helping? You've invaded our privacy, rearranged our home, and hidden my personal belongings. Mark held up his hands placatingly. Let's all calm down, Mom. Maybe you should head home. Hannah and I need to talk. Linda's lips thinned, but she nodded. Of course, dear. I'll just grab my things. As she disappeared upstairs, I turned to Mark, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. How could you let this happen? He sighed, avoiding my gaze. I didn't think it would be such a big deal. Mom just wanted to do something nice for us. I stared at him, disbelief washing over me. Nice? Mark, this isn't nice. This is a complete violation of our home, our privacy. Don't you see that? Before he could respond, Linda reappeared, purse in hand. She paused at the door, her voice sickly sweet. I'll be back tomorrow to finish up, dear. There's still so much to do. As the door closed behind her, I felt something inside me snap. I turned to Mark, my voice low and dangerous. If you don't fix this, and I mean right now, we're going to have a much bigger problem than your mother redecorating our house. Mark's face paled, and I knew this was far from over. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was ready for war. I stood in our bedroom, surrounded by the remnants of Linda's redecorating. The floral wallpaper made my head spin, and I fought the urge to tear it down with my bare hands. Mark hovered in the doorway, his face a mixture of guilt and apprehension. Hannah, I'm sorry. I'll talk to Mom, okay? We'll fix this, he said, his voice pleading. I turned to face him, my anger barely contained. This isn't just about the house, Mark. It's about us. It's about your mother constantly overstepping and you letting her. His shoulders slumped. She means well, Hannah. She's just trying to help. Help? I scoffed. Let me remind you of our wedding day. The memory flooded back, as vivid as if it were yesterday. Linda, resplendent in white, upstaging me at my own wedding. Mark, too afraid to say anything, even as I fought back tears. She wore white, Mark. White, to our wedding. Mark winced. I know, but she said it was cream, and I cut him off. And you believed her? Or did you just not want to rock the boat? He fell silent, and I knew I'd hit the mark. It had always been like this, from the moment we said, I do. A knock at the front door interrupted our standoff. Mark looked relieved at the distraction, but my stomach dropped. I knew that imperious rap of knuckles all too well. Mark? Hannah? Are you home? Linda's voice carried through the house. Before I could protest, Mark was already heading downstairs. I followed. My fists clenched at my sides. Linda breezed in, arms laden with shopping bags. I've brought some more things for the house. Oh, Hannah, dear, you look tired. Perhaps you should lie down while Mark and I finish up here. I felt my eye twitch. Linda, this needs to stop. Now. She blinked innocently. Stop what, dear? I'm only trying to help. Isn't that right, Mark? Mark looked between us, clearly torn. Mom, maybe we should talk about this, Hannah and I. Nonsense, Linda interrupted. There's nothing to talk about. Now, where shall we put these new curtains? I stepped forward, blocking her path. Linda, listen to me. This is our home, mine and Mark's, not yours. Linda's eyes narrowed. Well, I never. Mark, are you going to let her speak to me like this? I turned to my husband, silently pleading with him to stand up to his mother just this once. Mark swallowed hard. Mom, Hannah's right. We appreciate your help, but nothing, Linda snapped. I'm your mother, Mark. I know what's best for you, both of you. I felt something inside me snap. No, you don't. You have no idea what's best for us because you refuse to see us as adults. We're not children, Linda. We don't need your help, and we certainly don't need you redecorating our home without our permission. Linda gasped, clutching her pearls. Well, I never. Mark, are you going to let her speak to me like this? I held my breath, waiting for Mark's response. This was it, the moment of truth. Mark looked at his mother, then at me. I could see the conflict in his eyes. Finally, he spoke. Mom, I think you should go home now. Linda's jaw dropped. What? Please, Mom, just go home. We'll talk later. As Linda stormed out, slamming the door behind her, I felt a mix of relief and trepidation. I turned to Mark, searching his face. Thank you, I said softly. He nodded, looking exhausted. I'm sorry, Hannah. I should have stood up to her sooner. I wanted to believe this was a turning point, that things would be different now. But as I looked around at our transformed home, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a long, difficult battle. The weeks following our confrontation with Linda were blissfully quiet. Mark and I had almost managed to restore our home to its former state, erasing the last traces of Linda's improvements. I dared to hope that maybe, just maybe, we'd turned a corner. I should have known better. It was a lazy Sunday afternoon when the doorbell rang. Mark was out running errands, so I answered it, my heart sinking as I saw Linda's beaming face. "Surprise!" she chirped, pushing past me into the house. "I thought I'd drop by for a little visit." I forced a smile. "Linda, this isn't a good time. Mark's not even home." She waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, that's all right. We can have some girl time." Before I could protest, she was in the kitchen, pulling pots and pans from the cupboards. "I'll whip us up a nice lunch. You just relax, dear." I gritted my teeth. "Linda, please, I appreciate the offer, but—" "Nonsense," she interrupted. "It's no trouble at all. Now, where do you keep your good china?" As she rummaged through my cabinets, I felt my patience wearing thin. "Linda, stop. This is my home, and I didn't invite you over." She turned to me, her eyes narrowing. "I'm family, Hannah. I don't need an invitation." "Yes, you do," I insisted. "You can't just barge in here whenever you feel like it." Linda's face hardened. "I'm only trying to help. You should be grateful." "Grateful?" I scoffed. "For what? For invading my privacy? For disrespecting my boundaries?" She gasped, clutching her chest dramatically. "How dare you? After everything I've done for you and Mark." "Everything you've done?" I felt my voice rising. "You mean like wearing white to our wedding? Or redecorating our house without permission?" Linda's eyes flashed. "I was trying to make things better. This house was a disaster before I stepped in." I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. "Linda, I need you to listen to me. This behavior has to stop. You can't keep interfering in our lives like this." She laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Interfering? I'm looking out for my son's best interests. Someone has to, since you clearly can't." That was the last straw. "Get out," I said, my voice low and dangerous. Linda blinked, taken aback. "Excuse me?" "I said, get out, now." For a moment she just stared at me. Then her face contorted with rage. "You ungrateful little—" The front door opened, and Mark walked in, freezing at the scene before him. "What's going on?" Linda immediately burst into tears. "Oh, Mark, your wife is being so cruel to me. I only wanted to help, and she's throwing me out." Mark looked between us, confusion and distress evident on his face. "Hannah, what?" I cut him off. "Your mother showed up uninvited and refused to leave when I asked her to." Linda sniffled dramatically. "I just wanted to spend time with my family. Is that so wrong?" Mark ran a hand through his hair, clearly torn. "Mom, maybe now isn't the best time. Why don't I call you later?" Linda's tears dried up instantly, replaced by a look of triumph. "Of course, dear, I'll go. But remember, I'm always here for you." As she swept out the door, I turned to Mark, my anger barely contained. "This has to stop, Mark. We need to set some serious boundaries with your mother." He sighed heavily. I know. But she's my mom, Hannah. What am I supposed to do?" I stared at him, disbelief and disappointment washing over me. "You're supposed to support me, your wife. You're supposed to stand up to her when she oversteps." Mark looked away, unable to meet my eyes. In that moment, I realized with a sinking heart that this battle was far from over. And worse, I might be fighting it alone. The tension in our house had become unbearable. Mark and I barely spoke, the silence between us filled with unspoken accusations and resentment. I knew something had to give, and soon. It was a crisp autumn morning when I made my decision. I couldn't live like this anymore. I had to confront Linda once and for all. I drove to her house, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw George, my father-in-law, leaving for work. He gave me a sad, knowing look as he passed by. It struck me then how rarely I saw him smile these days. Linda answered the door in her silk robe, surprise flickering across her face. "Hannah? What are you doing here so early?" I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "We need to talk, Linda, now." She followed me into the living room, her eyes narrowing. "If this is about the other day, I think you owe me an apology." I whirled around to face her. "An apology? You're the one who needs to apologize, Linda, for years of manipulation, for constantly undermining my marriage, for treating me like I'm not good enough for your precious son." Linda's face hardened. "How dare you come into my home and speak to me like this? I've only ever wanted what's best for Mark." "No." I shot back. You've only ever wanted what's best for you. You can't stand the idea of Mark having a life that doesn't revolve around you. She gasped, her hand flying to her chest. That's ridiculous. Everything I do is for my family. I laughed bitterly. Family? Is that what you call it when you show up uninvited, rearrange our home, and constantly criticize everything I do? Linda's eyes flashed dangerously. I'm his mother. I have every right. No, you don't, I interrupted. You have no right to interfere in our marriage. No right to make me feel like an outsider in my own home. She stepped closer, her voice low and menacing. Listen here, you ungrateful little brat. Mark was fine before you came along. He doesn't need you. He has me. Something inside me snapped. That's exactly the problem, Linda. He's a grown man, not a little boy. He doesn't need you controlling his life. Linda's face contorted with rage. You think you can come between us? I raised him. I know what he needs better than anyone. What he needs is a mother who respects his choices and his marriage, I retorted, not someone who treats him like a possession. She raised her hand, and for a moment I thought she might actually strike me. Instead, she pointed at the door. Get out of my house, now. I stood my ground. Not until you understand that this has to stop. The constant interference, the manipulation, all of it. Linda's laugh was cold and cruel. Or what? You'll leave him? Go ahead. He'll always choose me over you. Her words hit me like a physical blow, because deep down I feared she might be right. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. This isn't over, Linda. I won't let you destroy my marriage. As I turned to leave, I caught sight of a framed photo on the mantel. It was Mark as a child, smiling brightly, with Linda's arms wrapped possessively around him. The image made my stomach churn. I walked out of Linda's house, my mind reeling. I knew I had just thrown down the gauntlet, and there was no going back now. The war was on, and I had to be prepared for whatever Linda might do next. As I drove home, a sense of resolve settled over me. I would fight for my marriage, for my home, for the life Mark and I had built together. And if Linda thought I would back down easily, she was in for a rude awakening, because this time I was ready to play her game. And win. I paced our living room, rehearsing the conversation I needed to have with Mark. My confrontation with Linda had left me raw and determined. It was time for Mark to choose, his mother or our marriage. When he walked through the door, I steeled myself. Mark, we need to talk. He sighed, dropping his briefcase. Hannah, can't this wait? I've had a long day. No, I said firmly. It can't. This is about us, about our future. Mark's shoulders slumped as he sat on the couch. What's wrong now? I took a deep breath. I went to see your mother today. His head snapped up. You did what? I had to, Mark. Things couldn't go on like this. I told her she needs to stop interfering in our lives. Mark ran a hand through his hair, his face a mix of frustration and anxiety. Hannah, you shouldn't have done that. You know how Mom gets. That's exactly the problem, I exclaimed. You always defend her no matter what she does. When are you going to stand up for me, for us? He stood up, pacing the room. What do you want me to do? She's my mother. And I'm your wife. I shot back. Your mother told me you don't need me, that you'll always choose her over me. Is she right, Mark? The silence that followed was deafening. Mark's hesitation felt like a knife to my heart. I can't believe this, I whispered. After everything we've been through, you still can't choose me over her? Mark reached for me, but I stepped back. Hannah, it's not that simple. I love you, but she's family. I'm your family too, Mark. Or at least I thought I was. Just then, Mark's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face paling. It's Mom. She says she's coming over. Panic rose in my chest. No, absolutely not. I can't deal with her right now. Mark looked torn. She's upset, Hannah. I can't just turn her away. I felt something inside me break. If she comes here, I'm leaving. I mean it, Mark. He stared at me, disbelief etched on his face. You can't be serious. I am, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. I won't be disrespected in my own home anymore. It's time for you to make a choice. The doorbell rang, its cheerful chime a stark contrast to the tension in the room. Mark looked from me to the door, indecision written all over his face. Mark, I pleaded one last time. Please. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and then moved towards the door. My heart sank as I watched him reach for the handle. In that moment, I made my decision. I rushed upstairs, threw some clothes into a suitcase, and grabbed my laptop. As I came back down, I could hear Linda's voice, shrill and angry, filling the house. Mark's eyes widened when he saw my suitcase. "Hannah, wait." But I was already heading for the door. "I have a business trip next week. I'm leaving early. Don't try to contact me." Linda appeared in the hallway, her face triumphant. "Running away, are we? I told you, Mark, she doesn't have what it takes." I paused at the door, turning to face them both. "No, Linda, I'm not running away. I'm giving your son a chance to figure out what he really wants. And Mark," I said, meeting his eyes, "when I get back, you better have made your choice, because I won't live like this anymore." With that, I walked out, leaving a stunned silence behind me. As I drove away, tears streaming down my face, I wondered if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life or the first step towards saving myself. Either way, I knew things would never be the same again. The taxi pulled up to our house, and I felt a knot form in my stomach. After a week away, I was both eager and terrified to see what awaited me. Mark hadn't called once during my trip, and I didn't know if that was a good sign or a terrible one. As I approached the front door, I noticed something off. The curtains were different, heavy floral patterns that I would never choose. My key stuck in the lock, and when I finally got the door open, I froze in shock. Our home had been completely transformed. Gone were our modern furnishings, replaced by stuffy antiques and gaudy decorations. The walls, once a soothing gray, were now covered in busy wallpaper. "Mark?" I called out, my voice echoing in the unfamiliar space. "In here, dear?" Linda's voice answered from the kitchen. I stormed in, fury building with each step. Linda stood at the counter, wearing an apron and looking perfectly at home. "What have you done?" I demanded. She smiled, a picture of innocence. "Oh, Hannah, welcome home. Do you like the changes? I thought it was time this place had a woman's touch." "A woman's touch?" I sputtered. "This is my home, Linda. Where's Mark?" "He's at work, of course," she replied, waving a hand dismissively. "Now, why don't you go freshen up while I finish dinner?" I stared at her, disbelief warring with rage. "You need to leave. Now." Linda's eyes narrowed. "I don't think so, dear. You see, while you were gone, Mark and I had a long talk. He agrees that I should move in to help out." "Move in?" I felt like I was in a nightmare. "That's impossible. Mark would never agree to that." She smirked, pulling an envelope from her pocket. "Oh, but he did. In fact, he signed over half the house to me, for safekeeping, you understand." I snatched the paper from her hand, my eyes scanning the legal document. There it was, in black and white. Mark had given Linda partial ownership of our home. "This can't be legal," I whispered. "Oh, it's perfectly legal," Linda gloated, "and there's nothing you can do about it." In that moment, something inside me snapped. I grabbed my phone and dialed Mark's number. "Hannah?" he answered, sounding surprised. "Get home, now," I growled, hanging up before he could respond. I turned back to Linda, who was watching me with a smug expression. "This isn't over." "Oh, I think it is," she replied. "Face it, Hannah, you've lost. Mark will always choose me." I was about to retort when the front door opened. Mark walked in, his face pale as he took in the scene. "What's going on?" he asked, looking between Linda and me. "Your mother says you signed over half our house to her," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Please tell me that's not true." Mark's silence was all the confirmation I needed. "How could you?" I whispered, feeling tears prick my eyes. "Hannah, I can explain," he started, but I cut him off. "Explain what? That you betrayed me? That you let your mother take over our home?" Linda stepped forward, placing a hand on Mark's arm. "Now, dear, don't be dramatic. We're all family here." I laughed bitterly. "Family? Is that what you call this?" Mark looked torn, his gaze shifting between his mother and me. I thought this would make things easier." "Easier?" I echoed in disbelief. "How is this easier?" Linda smiled triumphantly. "See, Mark? I told you she wouldn't understand. She's never appreciated everything we do for her." Something inside me hardened. I looked at Mark, really looked at him, and saw a man I no longer recognized. "I want a divorce," I said quietly. The room fell silent. Mark's face drained of color, while Linda's eyes gleamed with victory. "Hannah, please," Mark began, but I held up a hand. "No, I'm done. I won't live like this anymore." I turned to Linda. "You wanted him? You can have him, but this isn't over. Not by a long shot." As I walked out of the house that was no longer my home, I felt a strange mix of despair and determination. I had lost everything, but in that loss, I found a resolve I never knew I had. This was war, and I was ready to fight. I sat in Layla's office, my hands shaking as I clutched a manila folder. My friend and lawyer looked at me with a mix of concern and determination. "Are you sure about this, Hannah?" Layla asked, her voice gentle but firm. I nodded, my jaw set. "I'm sure. It's time to end this once and for all." Layla picked up her phone. "I'll set up the meeting. Are you ready to face them?" "I have to be," I replied, steeling myself for what was to come. 2 days later, I found myself sitting across from Mark, Linda, and George in a conference room. The tension was palpable, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Linda glared at me, her eyes cold. "What's the meaning of this, Hannah? Haven't you caused enough trouble?" I ignored her, turning to Layla. She nodded, then addressed the room. "We're here today because my client, Hannah, has evidence of fraudulent activity regarding the transfer of property." Mark's head snapped up. "What?" "That's impossible. I signed those papers myself." "Under duress," I interjected, my voice steady, "and with false information." Linda scoffed. "This is ridiculous. George, tell them how absurd this is." But George remained silent, his eyes fixed on the table. I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he knew more than he was letting on. Layla continued, "We have reason to believe that Linda misrepresented her financial situation to influence Mark's decision. Furthermore, we have evidence of other improprieties." Linda's face paled. "What are you talking about?" I leaned forward, my heart pounding. "I know about the affair, Linda." The room fell silent. Mark looked bewildered, while George's head snapped up, his eyes wide with shock. "What affair?" Mark asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I pulled out a stack of photos from the manila folder, spreading them across the table. They showed Linda with a man who was definitely not George, in various compromising positions. George's face crumpled as he looked at the photos. "Linda, how could you?" Linda's composure cracked. "It's not what it looks like. George, please." But George was already standing, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I can't believe this. All these years." Mark stared at the photos, then at his mother. "Mom, is this true?" Linda's eyes darted around the room like a cornered animal. "Mark." "Sweetie, you don't understand. Your father, he—" "Don't you dare blame this on me," George interrupted, his voice trembling with anger. "I've put up with your manipulation for years, but this is the last straw." I watched as the family I had once been a part of imploded before my eyes. Part of me felt vindicated, but another part ached for the pain I saw on their faces. Mark turned to me, his eyes filled with confusion and hurt. "Hannah, why didn't you tell me?" "Would you have believed me?" I asked softly. "You never took my side before." He flinched as if I'd slapped him. I'm so sorry. I had no idea." Linda suddenly stood up, her chair toppling over. "This is all your fault." She screamed at me. "You've ruined everything." She lunged across the table, her hands outstretched as if to strangle me. I recoiled, but before she could reach me, George grabbed her arm. "That's enough, Linda," he said, his voice cold. "It's over." As security escorted a hysterical Linda from the room, I felt a strange mix of emotions wash over me. Relief, sadness, anger, and a glimmer of hope. Mark reached out, his hand hovering over mine. "Hannah, I don't know what to say." I pulled my hand away, my heart heavy. "There's nothing to say, Mark. It's too late." As I walked out of the conference room, I realized that this wasn't just the end of my marriage. It was the beginning of a new chapter in my life, one where I would finally put myself first. 6 months after the explosive revelation, I stood on the steps of the courthouse, my heart pounding. Today was the final hearing for both divorces, mine from Mark and George's from Linda. The air was thick with tension as we all filed into the courtroom. As the judge entered, I caught sight of Linda. She looked smaller somehow, her once immaculate appearance now disheveled. Mark sat beside her, his eyes darting nervously between his mother and me. George sat alone, his face a mask of quiet determination. The proceedings began, and I listened as Layla presented our case. She detailed Linda's manipulation, the fraudulent property transfer, and the affair. With each word, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. When it was Linda's turn to speak, she launched into a tirade. "This is all a misunderstanding. I only wanted what was best for my family. Hannah never understood our bond. She tried to come between us." The judge silenced her with a stern look. "Mrs. Thompson, the evidence against you is overwhelming. Your actions were not only manipulative, but illegal." I watched as the color drained from Linda's face. For the first time, I saw her for what she truly was, a scared, insecure woman who had spent her life controlling others to feel powerful. The judge continued, "In light of the evidence, I'm ruling in favor of Mrs. Hannah Thompson. The property transfer is nullified, and Mrs. Linda Thompson will be required to pay damages for her fraudulent actions." A collective gasp filled the room. I felt a surge of vindication, but it was tempered by a deep sadness for the family that had been torn apart. As we filed out of the courtroom, Mark approached me. "Hannah, I'm so sorry for everything. I should have stood up to my mother. I should have believed in us." I looked at him, seeing the regret in his eyes. Part of me wanted to forgive him, to go back to the way things were, but I knew that wasn't possible. "I'm sorry too, Mark," I said softly, "but we can't go back. It's time for both of us to move forward." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. As he walked away, I felt a chapter of my life closing. George approached next, looking years older than when I'd first met him. "Hannah, I want to thank you. If it weren't for you, I might never have known the truth. I've wasted so many years, but now I have a chance to live the life I want." I squeezed his hand, feeling a kinship with this man who had also been a victim of Linda's manipulation. "You deserve happiness, George. I hope you find it." As I turned to leave, I saw Linda standing alone, her face a mixture of anger and despair. For a moment, our eyes met. I expected to feel triumph or anger, but instead, I felt pity. Linda had lost everything: her husband, her son's trust, her power. In the end, her manipulations had cost her everything she held dear. I walked out of the courthouse feeling the warm sun on my face. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. The house was mine again, but more importantly, I had reclaimed my life. As I drove home, I realized that this experience had changed me. I was stronger now, more confident in my own worth. I had faced my greatest fear, losing everything, and come out the other side. Pulling into my driveway, I smiled at the sight of my home. It was time to redecorate, to erase the last traces of Linda's influence. But more than that, it was time to start a new chapter. I may have lost the family I married into, but I had gained something far more valuable: self-respect, strength, and the knowledge that I could weather any storm. As I unlocked the door, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see what it held. I had survived the storm, and now it was time to enjoy the calm that followed. I was ready for whatever came next, knowing that I had the strength to face it head-on. This wasn't just an ending. It was a new beginning.
The attic smells like forgotten promises and stale regret. Dust motes dance in the beam of sunlight streaming through the small window, making the air look thick enough to chew. I've been sorting through my grandparents' belongings for hours, boxing up decades of memories they've collected in this cramped space. Welcome to today's tale. Before we begin, share your location with our community. Let's see how far these stories travel. Don't forget to subscribe for more. Now then. My name is June, and I'm doing what good granddaughters do, helping clear out the mess before they downsize to their new condo. At least that's what I tell myself as I wade through cardboard boxes and steamer trunks. Found anything interesting up there? Grandma Helen's voice floats up from below. Just more Christmas decorations, I call back, pushing aside a box labeled 1985 tax returns. And about 50 years of Reader's Digest. That's when I see it, a pale blue envelope peeking out from beneath a stack of old photo albums. The paper is thin, delicate, like it might crumble in my hands. My mother's handwriting jumps out at me immediately. I'd recognize those precise, angular letters anywhere. The letter is dated March 15, 1999. I would have been 3 months old. Dear Mom. I don't know how to say this without sounding terrible, but I need to tell someone. I never wanted a second child. Robert and I were perfect with just Jessica. She was everything we dreamed of, beautiful, smart, our little miracle. This new baby. June. She feels like an intruder. Every time she cries, I want to scream. Robert barely looks at her. We're both just going through the motions. I know you'll judge me for this, but I had to tell someone. Sometimes I look at her and feel nothing but regret. Love. Emily. The paper trembles in my hands. My throat closes up, and something hot and sharp twists in my chest. All those years of sideways glances, forgotten birthdays, and half-hearted hugs suddenly make perfect sense. June. You've gone quiet up there. Grandma's voice again, tinged with concern. I stuffed the letter in my pocket. I'm fine, I manage, but my voice cracks on the second word. Footsteps on the stairs. Grandma appears in the attic doorway, her face softening when she sees me. Oh, sweetheart. You found it. You knew about this. She crosses the room and pulls me into her arms. I smell her familiar lavender perfume, feel the softness of her cardigan against my cheek. Your grandfather and I have been trying to protect you since the day you were born. From what? The truth that my own parents never wanted me. From their limitations, she says firmly. Their inability to see what was right in front of them, a beautiful, brilliant girl who deserved so much more than their indifference. I pull away, wiping my eyes with the back of my hand. Is that why you and Grandpa have always been there? Of course. We saw what was happening. We couldn't stand by and watch you fade into Jessica's shadow. The letter burns in my pocket like a brand. All those years of trying to prove myself, of competing with Jessica's golden child status. Of seeking approval that would never come, it wasn't just in my head. It was real. It is real. What do I do now? I whisper. Grandma takes my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. You live. You thrive. You show them exactly what they missed out on. She pauses, studying my face. And maybe, just maybe, you make them regret every moment they took you for granted. Something shifts inside me, like tectonic plates realigning. The hurt is still there, but it's hardening into something else, something with edges sharp enough to cut. I think I'd like that, I say quietly, and for the first time since finding the letter, I smile. Grandma squeezes my hand. Then let's start with getting you through college. Your grandfather and I have been saving for years. It's time you knew about that too. The attic suddenly feels less like a graveyard of memories and more like a launching pad. I may have been an unwanted child, but I'm done being an unwanted adult. My mother's words might have broken something inside me today, but they've also set something free. And I intend to make every single one of them remember this moment. 3 days after finding the letter, I'm sitting at my parents' dining room table, pretending to care about Jessica's wedding color schemes. My sister spreads magazine clippings across the polished mahogany like she's planning a military campaign. The venue alone is $60,000, Jessica announces, tapping a glossy photo of some vineyard estate. But Daddy already promised it's not an issue. Mother beams at her. Nothing but the best for our special girl. I concentrate on my coffee, watching the cream swirl into patterns. My acceptance letter to graduate school burns a hole in my bag, the one I haven't mentioned yet because I already know what they'll say. Or won't say. June could help with the centerpieces, Jessica suggests, not looking up from her magazines. Save us some money there. I can't, I say. I'll be busy with school. Now they look at me. Mother's perfectly plucked eyebrows arch upward. Still. Surely you've gotten enough education by now. I got accepted to Columbia's financial analytics program. The words tumble out before I can stop them. Full-time, starting this fall. The silence that follows feels like a vacuum. Jessica's mouth twists into something between a smirk and a frown. How exactly are you planning to pay for that? I've been saving, I say. And Grandma and Grandpa. Oh, June. Mother's voice drips with familiar disappointment. You can't keep expecting your grandparents to support you. They're getting older. They need to think about their own future. Father finally looks up from his phone. Colombia's expensive. We've already committed our resources to Jessica's wedding. Maybe in a few years. A few years. I grip my coffee mug tighter. Like after you've paid for Jessica's third destination wedding. That's uncalled for, Mother snaps. Your sister found real love this time. Michael is different. Jessica preens. He's already talking about buying that house in Greenwich. Once his startup takes off. Which startup is this? I ask. The fourth one. Fifth. You're just jealous, Jessica hisses. Some of us actually have ambition. I stand up so quickly my chair scrapes against the floor. Ambition. I worked through undergrad. I maintained a 4.0 GPA. I got into one of the top graduate programs in the country. But none of that matters because I'm not Jessica. Sit down, Father orders. You're being dramatic. Through the dining room window, I spot Grandpa's car pulling into the driveway. He's early to pick me up. Thank God. I have to go, I say, grabbing my bag. Enjoy planning the $60,000 party. June. Mother's voice stops me at the door. We just want what's best for you. Maybe it's time to be practical. Get a job, start building a real life instead of hiding in school. I turn back slowly. You know what? You're right. It is time to be practical. Time to accept that nothing I do will ever be enough for you. Because I'm not your real daughter, I'm just your regret. Mother's face goes white. What are you talking about? Ask Grandma about the letter, I say, and walk out. Grandpa's waiting in his old Volvo, radio playing soft jazz. One look at my face and he knows. Rough meeting. They're spending $60,000 just on the venue for Jessica's wedding. My voice shakes. But when I mentioned grad school. Already taken care of, he says quietly. Your grandmother and I set up a trust for your education years ago. We knew this day would come. I stare at him. But that's your retirement money. He chuckles. June, watching you succeed will be better than any retirement. Now, want to tell me what really happened in there? You look like you dropped quite a bomb. I mentioned the letter. My hands clench in my lap. I shouldn't have, but. Good. Good. Sometimes people need their comfortable lives disrupted. He puts the car in drive. Now, how about we go get some ice cream and talk about Colombia? As we pull away, I catch a glimpse of Mother watching from the window. For the first time, I don't feel the usual stab of guilt and longing. Instead, I feel something new taking root, something that tastes like freedom and burns like revenge. The mortgage documents scatter across my laptop screen like pieces of a puzzle I never wanted to solve. My hands shake as I scroll through the county records database, each click revealing another layer of my parents' financial desperation. Second mortgage. Home equity line of credit. Personal loans. All taken out within the last 3 months. All coinciding perfectly with Jessica's wedding preparations. My phone buzzes. Another text from Mother, we need to discuss your attitude at the next wedding planning meeting. I ignore it, focusing instead on the numbers that don't lie. They've leveraged everything, the house, their retirement accounts, even Dad's life insurance policy, all for Jessica's perfect day. A knock at my bedroom door makes me jump. Come in, Grandma. She enters with a cup of tea, her face creasing with concern when she sees my expression. You found something. They're drowning themselves for her. I turn the laptop around. Look at these numbers. They'll lose everything if anything goes wrong. If Michael's latest startup fails again, if Jessica decides she needs more, Grandma finishes, setting down the tea. Your sister has always been very good at getting what she wants. My phone buzzes again. Jessica, this time, Mom's really upset about what you said. You need to apologize. I need to stop this, I say, standing up. They're making a huge mistake. June. But I'm already grabbing my keys, anger propelling me forward. The drive to my parents' house takes 15 minutes. I rehearse what I'll say, how I'll make them see reason. They have to listen this time. I find them in the living room with Jessica and Michael, surrounded by wedding catalogs and champagne flutes. Mother's face hardens when she sees me. We're in the middle of something, she says. Yeah, you're in the middle of destroying yourselves. I pull up the mortgage documents on my phone. Want to explain this? Father stands up, his face flushing. You had no right to look into our private affairs. Private? It's public record. Just like the foreclosure will be when you can't make the payments. Jessica sets down her champagne. What's she talking about? Nothing, Mother says quickly. June is just being dramatic again. They've mortgaged everything, I say, looking directly at Jessica. The house, their savings, everything, for your wedding. Michael shifts uncomfortably. Jessica, maybe we should. Shut up, she snaps at him before turning to our parents. Is this true? Are you paying for everything? Of course we are, Mother says. You deserve. I thought Michael's family was contributing, Jessica's voice rises. You said they were handling half. Michael stands up. My parents can't. I mean, with the market being what it is. You lied to me. Jessica's perfect facade cracks. Both of you. Sweetheart, Father starts. Don't. She grabs her purse. I can't believe this. Michael, we're leaving. They storm out, leaving behind the heavy silence of unspoken truths. Mother turns to me, her eyes blazing. Are you happy now? You've ruined everything. I ruined it. You're literally bankrupting yourselves for her fantasy wedding, and I'm the problem. Get out, Father says quietly. And don't come back until you're ready to apologize. I laugh, and it sounds strange even to my ears. Apologize? For what? Caring enough to try to stop you from destroying yourselves? For not being Jessica? That's enough. Mother stands up. I won't have you speaking to us this way in our home. Fine. I head for the door, then stop. But when this all falls apart, and it will, don't come crying to me. We would never, Mother says, her voice ice cold. You've made it very clear where your loyalties lie. I turn back one last time. My loyalties. That's rich coming from someone who regretted having me from the day I was born. The color drains from her face. Father looks between us, confused. Emily, he asks. What is she talking about? But I don't stay to watch that particular bomb detonate. I walk out, letting the door slam behind me. In my car, I sit for a long moment, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turn white. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Grandpa. Come home, June. We'll figure this out together. I start the engine, leaving behind the house that holds 22 years of rejection. It's time to stop trying to save people who never wanted to be saved in the first place. My Columbia acceptance letter sits on Grandpa's desk while he reviews my financial aid package. 2 weeks have passed since the confrontation, and the silence from my parents speaks volumes. Jessica's wedding has been postponed indefinitely, according to the Family Gossip Network. These numbers look good, Grandpa says, adjusting his reading glasses. With our savings and this scholarship. A knock at the front door interrupts him. Through the window, I spot Jessica's Mercedes in the driveway. I'll handle it, I tell him, but he shakes his head. Let her in. Sometimes the hardest conversations are the most necessary. Jessica looks smaller somehow, standing in Grandpa's study. Her designer outfit can't hide the shadows under her eyes or the way her hands keep fidgeting with her engagement ring. Michael left, she says without preamble. His startup was a scam. He took what was left of his trust fund and disappeared. I wait for the satisfaction to hit, but it doesn't come. I'm sorry. No, you're not. She sinks into a leather chair. You tried to warn everyone. God, what a mess. She looks at Grandpa. Did you know about Mom's letter? Helen showed it to me the day she received it, he says quietly. We made certain decisions that day about how to protect June. Jessica's laugh sounds hollow. Protect her. While I was being set up to fail. She turns to me. Do you know what it's like being the golden child? The pressure to be perfect. To never disappoint. Do you know what it's like being the disappointment? I counter. The one they never wanted in the first place. They're losing the house, she says abruptly. The bank called yesterday. Dad's been missing payments for months, even before my wedding plans. They've been in trouble for years, hiding it from everyone. The room seems to tilt slightly. What? They remortgaged everything trying to maintain appearances. My wedding was just the final straw. She pulls out her phone, shows me a series of texts. They're asking me to move back in with them, to help with payments. But I can't. I don't have anything left either. Grandpa clears his throat. What exactly are you asking for, Jessica? I don't know. She looks at me, really looks at me, maybe for the first time. Maybe to understand why they could never love us equally. Maybe to apologize for being part of it. Maybe. She trails off, staring at my acceptance letter. Maybe to warn you that they're planning to ask you for help. They know about your scholarship. My stomach churns. They what? Mom went through your mail before you moved out. She knows about the grant money. Jessica stands up. Don't give it to them, June. Don't let them do to you what they did to me. Jessica. I have to go. She heads for the door, then pauses. For what it's worth, I wish things had been different between us. Maybe they still can be. After she leaves, Grandpa and I sit in silence. The acceptance letter seems to mock me from his desk. They'll try to guilt you, he finally says. They'll say family helps family. They'll remind you of every sacrifice they never actually made. I know. The money in your education fund is legally yours. They can't touch it. I know that too. He leans forward. Then what's troubling you? I stare out the window, watching Jessica's taillights disappear down the street. What if revenge isn't what I thought it would be? What if letting them fail makes me just like them? There's a difference between revenge and self-preservation, he says. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to let them face the consequences of their choices. My phone buzzes, Mother's number. I silence it without reading the message. I need to focus on school, I say finally. On building my own life. Yes, you do. He picks up the acceptance letter. And that's not revenge, June. That's survival. The phone buzzes again. This time, I turn it off completely. Tomorrow, I'll change my number. Tomorrow, I'll start packing for New York. Tomorrow, I'll begin writing my own story. But tonight, I let myself mourn the family I never really had, and celebrate the one that chose to love me anyway. The job offer from Goldman Sachs sits in my inbox like a golden ticket. 6 figures, signing bonus, everything I've worked toward at Columbia. My tiny apartment in Manhattan feels electric with possibility as I read through the details again. My phone rings, Jessica's number. We've spoken more in the past 6 months than in the previous 22 years. They're being evicted, she says without preamble. Next week. I minimize the job offer email. What happened to the payment plan? Failed. Like everything else. Her voice sounds thin, stretched. Dad's drinking now. Mom's talking about moving in with me, but I can barely afford my studio apartment. The cursor blinks on my screen, hovering over the accept offer button. I can't help them, Jess. I know. That's not why I called. She pauses. They're telling people you abandoned them. That you're hoarding your wealth while they suffer. They're even claiming Grandma and Grandpa turned you against them. My hand clenches around the phone. Of course they are. There's more. Mom's been calling your firm, trying to reach your future boss. Saying she needs to discuss her troubled daughter before they make a mistake hiring you. The room tilts slightly. Everything I've built, everything I've earned, suddenly feels fragile. June. You there? I have to go. I hang up, fingers already typing an email to HR. Better they hear it from me first. A knock at my door makes me jump. Through the peephole, I see Mother, looking smaller than I remember, but wearing her expensive coat like armor. I open the door but block the entrance. How did you find my address? Your grandmother. She tries to smile. May I come in? No. Her smile falters. I'm still your mother. Are you? Because mothers don't try to sabotage their children's careers. I was protecting you. She reaches for my arm. I step back. You're not ready for that kind of pressure. Come home. We can figure something out together. As a family. Family. I laugh, and it sounds like breaking glass. You mean like how you figured out Jessica's wedding? Or Dad's drinking? Or the house you're losing? We made mistakes. Her eyes fill with tears. But we love you. No, you love what I could do for you now. My job offer, my savings, that's what you love. She drops the act, her face hardening. You ungrateful. Don't. I pull out my phone, show her the email I just received. HR already knows about your calls. They've documented everything. One more attempt to contact them, and they'll file harassment charges. You would do that. To your own mother. You did this to yourself. I start closing the door. Just like everything else. If you close that door, you'll regret it, she says quietly. Family is all we have in the end. I look at her, really look at her, and for the first time, I see her clearly. The designer coat that's probably unpaid for. The desperate calculation behind her tears. The woman who wrote that letter 22 years ago, regretting my existence. No, I say. Family is what we choose. And I choose not to be your backup plan. I close the door on her protests, then slide down against it until I'm sitting on the floor. My phone buzzes with a text from Grandma. Your mother just left our house. Are you okay? Before I can respond, another email notification pops up. Goldman Sachs HR, regarding recent events. My hands shake as I open it, expecting the worst. Instead, I find support. They're increasing security at the office. They've documented everything. The position is still mine if I want it. I stand up, legs steady now, and walk to my window. 6 stories below, I watch Mother get into a taxi, already on her phone, probably moving on to her next potential savior. I click accept offer on the job email, then text Jessica, I'm okay. Are you? Her response comes quickly, getting there. Thanks for asking. And June. I'm proud of you. Something shifts inside me, like tectonic plates finding their final resting place. I've spent years trying to earn love that was never freely given. Now it's time to build something new, something honest, something mine. Starting with saying yes to my future, and goodbye to their past. The foreclosure notice arrives on my desk at Goldman Sachs via courier. Not email, not regular mail, hand-delivered, like a gauntlet thrown. My parents' house goes up for auction in 48 hours. I stare at the bank's letterhead, my fingers tracing the embossed logo. I could stop this. One phone call to the right person, one transfer from my bonus account, and they'd have another chance. My office phone rings. Jessica. They're sleeping in their car, she says. Dad's drinking worse than ever. Mom won't stop crying. I close my eyes. Where are you? Working double shifts at the diner. It's all I could find after. She trails off. After Michael took everything. After the wedding fell apart. After our parents' facade finally crumbled. I'll handle it, I hear myself say. June, no. You can't. I hang up. My computer screen shows my investment portfolio, the fruits of 2 years at Goldman. More than enough for a down payment on a modest house. Not their old one, but something sustainable. Grandpa answers on the first ring. Don't do it. You don't know what I'm planning. I know that look in your eyes. I can hear it in your voice. He sighs. Some people need to hit bottom before they can rebuild. They're sleeping in their car. And whose fault is that? My hand clenches around the phone. I can't just let them. Like they let you struggle. Like they let you feel unwanted for 22 years. This is different. Yes, he says quietly. Because you're better than they are. I pull up the real estate listings I've been secretly browsing. 3-bedroom ranch house. Good neighborhood. Within their means, if they'd actually try. I have to try, I tell him. One last time. He's silent for a long moment. Then do it with your eyes open. And protect yourself. I make the calls. Sign the papers. Set up the trust so they can't sell or refinance without my approval. Within hours, I'm standing in front of them in a McDonald's parking lot, where they've been living out of their Mercedes. Mother's mascara is smeared. Father won't meet my eyes. I hold out the keys. It's yours if you want it, I say. But there are conditions. Conditions. Mother's voice cracks. We're your parents. Exactly. And that's why there are conditions. I pull out the contract. No refinancing. No loans. Dad gets help for the drinking. You both get jobs, real jobs, not pyramid schemes or startups. Father finally looks at me. Who do you think you are? The daughter you never wanted. The one who succeeded anyway. I set the keys and contract on their hood. Take it or leave it. Mother reaches for the keys, but Father knocks them away. They skitter across the pavement. We don't need your charity, he spits. Robert, Mother hisses. Think about. No. He straightens up, swaying slightly. She thinks she's better than us. Thinks she can buy us like some kind of investment. I finish for him. No. This isn't an investment. It's a test. A test. Mother asks. To see if you can actually be parents. To see if you can put someone else first for once. I pick up the keys. But I guess I have my answer. June, please, Mother reaches for me. We can change. Can you? I look at Father, still glaring, still proud even in his defeat. At Mother, calculating even through her tears. Prove it. Get help. Get jobs. Show me you're actually trying. Then we'll talk about the house. I walk away, their protests fading behind me. In my car, I rest my head against the steering wheel, feeling the weight of their failure, and mine. I wanted to save them. Wanted to prove I was better, stronger, more capable. But some people don't want to be saved. They just want to drag you down with them. My phone buzzes. A text from Jessica, they told me what you tried to do. Thank you for trying. And thank you for not giving in. I start the car, the house keys heavy in my pocket. Maybe salvation isn't about grand gestures or proving points. Maybe it's about knowing when to walk away, even when it breaks your heart. Especially then. 2 weeks after my failed attempt to help them, Mother calls with news that makes my blood freeze. We found a house. The bank approved our loan application. I know it's impossible. Their credit is destroyed. Unless the property records confirm my suspicion. They used my name, my credit, my identity. I stand in their new driveway now, watching guests arrive for their housewarming party. Mother's already redecorated, hanging her precious crystal chandelier in the foyer. Through the window, I see familiar faces, family friends, colleagues, all here to celebrate their miraculous recovery. Jessica meets me at the door, her face tight. They're telling everyone you gave them the house as a gift. That you begged them to accept it. Where did they get my information? Mom still had your old documents from when you lived at home. She hands me a glass of wine. I tried to stop them, but nothing. I down the wine in one gulp. Where are they? They're holding court in the living room, Mother glowing as she describes their wonderful daughter's generosity. Father. Sober for the first time in months, nodding along. June. Mother spreads her arms wide. Everyone, here's our guardian angel. The room turns to me, faces beaming. I feel their expectations like a noose. Tell them, I say quietly. Mother's smile falters. Tell them what, darling? Tell them how you forged my signature. How you stole my identity to get this loan. The room goes silent. Someone's glass hits the floor with a crash. June, Father steps forward. You're confused. We discussed this. No. I pull out my phone, show the screen. I just got off the phone with the bank's fraud department. They have the paperwork. They have the security footage of you both signing my name. Mother's face hardens. We had no choice. You abandoned us. Abandoned you. I offered to help. I gave you a chance. A chance. She laughs bitterly. You wanted to control us. To make us beg. Just like you've always done, playing the victim. I found the letter, I cut her off. The one you wrote to Grandma when I was born. About regretting me. The color drains from her face. Father looks confused. What letter? Oh, you didn't know. I turn to him. Your wife wrote to Grandma saying what a mistake I was. How perfect life was before I came along. I face Mother again. Is that why you did this? One final attempt to prove I'm the mistake. Emily. Father's voice shakes. Is this true? It was postpartum depression, she stammers. I didn't mean. Like you didn't mean to steal my identity. I pull out another document. The police are already involved. They'll be here within the hour. You wouldn't, Mother whispers. We're your parents. No. You're criminals who happen to share my DNA. I look around the room at the shocked faces. Everyone out. Now. They file out quietly, leaving behind half-empty glasses and uneaten hors d'oeuvres. Jessica stays, standing by the door. You did it, she says softly. You finally stood up to them. Mother collapses onto the sofa, tears streaming. Father just stares at the wall, shoulders slumped. The police will be here soon, I tell them. You can either leave now, or wait for them. Your choice. Where would we go? Mother asks. That's not my problem anymore. I head for the door, then stop. The letter you wrote. You were right about one thing. Life would have been perfect without me in it. Just not for the reasons you thought. I walk out into the cool evening air, leaving behind the sound of Mother's sobs and Father's broken silence. Jessica follows me to my car. What happens now? She asks. Now? I look back at the house, at the crystal chandelier casting shadows through the window. Now I finally stop trying to fix what was never meant to be fixed. Police sirens wail in the distance, growing closer. I get in my car, roll down the window. You coming? Jessica glances back at the house, then slides into the passenger seat. We drive away as red and blue lights paint the street behind us, illuminating the end of one story and the beginning of another. The real estate agent's heels click against the empty hardwood floors of what was briefly my parents' house. After their arrest, the bank agreed to let me sell it rather than foreclose, one final act of cleanup in a mess I didn't create. The offers are all above asking, she says, shuffling papers. The market's hot right now. I nod, walking through rooms still bearing ghost marks of Mother's decorating attempts. The crystal chandelier is gone, sold to pay for their legal fees. Jessica helped me pack up what little remained, both of us silent as we boxed away the fragments of our broken family. My phone buzzes, a text from Grandma, found something else in the attic you should see. Come by when you're done. I'll take the highest offer, I tell the agent. Rush the closing. She beams. I'll draw up the paperwork right away. Standing alone in the empty living room, I remember Mother's tears, Father's silence, the police lights painting the walls. Their court date is next week. Jessica's planning to testify about years of financial manipulation. I submitted my statement in writing, my final words to the people who gave me life but never gave me love. The doorbell rings. Jessica stands on the porch, holding a cardboard box. Found these at their storage unit, she says, setting it down. Thought you should have them. Inside are photo albums I've never seen. Pictures of me as a baby, dozens of them. Mother holding me in the hospital, actually smiling. Father teaching me to walk. Birthday parties I barely remember. There's more, Jessica says quietly. Letters Mom wrote but never sent. To you, to Grandma. They tell a different story. It doesn't change anything. No, she agrees. But maybe it makes it more complicated. I close the box. I'm selling the house. After their legal fees and restitution, there might be something left. Keep it, she says. Put it toward your future. I've got a job interview next week, a real one, at an accounting firm. Time I stood on my own feet too. The real estate agent returns with contracts. As I sign, Jessica watches from the doorway. You know what's weird, she says later as we walk to our cars. I always thought you were the lucky one. You had the strength to break free. To build something real. I had help. Grandma and Grandpa. No. She touches my arm. You had something inside you. Something they couldn't break. At our grandparents' house, Grandma hands me an envelope, yellow with age. Inside is another letter from Mother, dated just after my first birthday. Dear Mom. I was wrong about June. The regret I felt. It wasn't about her. It was about me. My fears. My inadequacies. She deserves better than what I can give her. Maybe one day she'll understand that the problem was never her, it was always me. I just hope she grows up stronger than I am. Love. Emily. She never sent this one either, Grandma says softly. Would it have made a difference if she had? Perhaps not. But it shows that even the darkest stories have other pages we don't see. I fold the letter carefully, place it in the box with the others. Not to keep, but to remind me that the truth is rarely simple, and healing rarely complete. The house sold, I tell her. Above asking price. She smiles. And what will you do with your share? I think about the startup I've been secretly planning. About the investment strategies I've developed at Goldman. About all the things I learned watching my parents destroy themselves with debt and desperation. I'm going to build something, I say. Something that helps people understand money before it destroys them. Something that might have made a difference, if we'd known sooner. Grandma hugs me, and I breathe in her familiar lavender scent. Then you've learned the most valuable lesson of all, she whispers. How to turn pain into purpose. Outside, the setting sun paints the sky in shades of possibility. Jessica's car is still in the driveway. She and Grandpa are probably discussing her job interview. We're building something new from the ashes of what burned. Not forgiveness, exactly. Not yet. But maybe something stronger, the understanding that while we can't choose how our story begins, we absolutely can choose how it continues.
The letter sat on my kitchen counter like a coiled snake. Plain white envelope, no return address, just my husband's name written in precise, measured strokes. I'd found it mixed in with our regular mail, and something about those careful letters made my stomach clench. I'm Vivian, and until this moment, I thought I knew exactly who I was. Wife, daughter-in-law, former marketing executive turned reluctant housewife. Living with my in-laws wasn't my idea of domestic bliss, but I'd made my peace with it. Or so I thought. My fingers traced the edge of the envelope. Daniel wouldn't be home for hours, and Lorraine, my mother-in-law, was upstairs doing whatever she did to maintain her iron grip on this household. The temptation to open it grew with each passing second. Something interesting in the mail, dear? Lorraine's voice cut through my thoughts. She stood in the doorway, perfectly coiffed as always, watching me with those hawk-like eyes. Just sorting through bills, I said, sliding the envelope beneath a stack of junk mail. Nothing exciting. She glided across the kitchen, heels clicking against the tile. You know, a good wife doesn't keep secrets from her husband. No secrets here, Lorraine. Just trying to organize things before Daniel gets home. She reached for the coffee pot, her wedding ring catching the light. Such a dedicated wife you've become. Who would have thought? The way she said it made my skin crawl. I busied myself with wiping down the already spotless counter, fighting the urge to snap back. 3 years of living under her roof had taught me the futility of direct confrontation. Later that night, after dinner and dishes and the usual dance of forced pleasantries, I finally got my hands on the letter again. Daniel was in the shower, and I'd retreated to our bedroom, heart pounding as I carefully opened the envelope. The words hit me like a physical blow. Your wife isn't who you think she is. Ask her about Marcus Bennett and the late nights at the office. Ask her why she really quit her job. The truth will break your heart, but you deserve to know. My hands shook as I read it again. Marcus, Daniel's childhood friend, my former colleague. We'd worked together on projects, nothing more. But someone had twisted that into something ugly, something that could destroy everything. A soft knock at the door made me jump. Vivian? It was Evelyn, Lorraine's mother-in-law, her voice warm with concern. May I come in? I stuffed the letter under my pillow. Of course. Evelyn entered, her weathered face kind but knowing. At 84, she saw more than anyone gave her credit for. I couldn't help but notice you seemed troubled at dinner. I'm fine, I said automatically, then caught myself. Actually, no, I'm not fine at all. She sat beside me on the bed, her presence somehow both comforting and unsettling. Someone's trying to hurt you, aren't they? The question hung in the air between us. Before I could answer, Daniel's voice carried up from downstairs. Mom, have you seen my gray tie? I'll help him look, Evelyn said, patting my hand. But remember, dear, in this house, walls have ears and shadows have eyes. Be careful who you trust. She left me there, clutching a poison pen letter and wondering if my own mother-in-law could really hate me enough to destroy my marriage. But as I heard Lorraine's laugh floating up from below, followed by her sugary sweet, Daniel, darling, let me help you with that. I knew in my gut who was behind this. The game was on, and I refused to be the only one getting hurt. The second letter arrived during Sunday brunch, this time slipped under our bedroom door. I found it while everyone else was downstairs, their voices drifting up through the floorboards like a distant radio play. My hands trembled as I read, Ask your precious wife about the hotel receipts. Ask her why she deletes her text messages. Your mother tried to warn you. I crumpled the paper, fury rising in my throat. 3 days had passed since the first letter, and I'd watched Lorraine work her magic. Little comments at dinner about how Marcus had always been such a devoted friend. Meaningful glances when Daniel mentioned staying late at work. Each word a carefully placed landmine. Everything all right up here? Daniel appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie. Mom's wondering where you disappeared to. I'm sure she is, I thought. Just needed a moment. I forced a smile, shoving the letter into my pocket. Your mother's stories about her garden club can be a bit overwhelming. He crossed the room, pulled me close. I know she can be intense, but she means well. If only you knew. I buried my face in his shoulder, breathing in his familiar scent. Daniel, there's something... Darling? Lorraine's voice preceded her up the stairs. The quiche is getting cold. I pulled away from Daniel, catching the flash of satisfaction in Lorraine's eyes when she saw us separate. She'd perfected the art of interruption. Coming, Mom, Daniel called, then kissed my forehead. We'll talk later? But later never came. Lorraine orchestrated the entire afternoon, keeping us occupied with family photos and stories that always seemed to circle back to her role as the perfect mother, wife, keeper of family harmony. That evening, I found Evelyn in the garden, tending to her roses. She looked up as I approached, her weathered hands steady among the thorns. 2 letters now, she said without preamble. I saw her slipping this morning's under your door. My heart skipped. You saw... Lorraine's not as subtle as she thinks. Evelyn snipped a dead bloom. She pulled the same tricks with me years ago. Anonymous notes suggesting Robert was unfaithful. Whispered rumors about my past. She wanted control of the house, you see. Wanted me gone. What did you do? I stayed. She met my eyes. Some battles aren't won by fighting, dear. They're won by surviving. A door slammed somewhere in the house. Through the kitchen window, I could see Lorraine on the phone gesturing animatedly. My stomach turned as I recognized the name she was saying. Marcus. She's calling our friends now, I said, spreading her poison. Then perhaps it's time to let her poison work against her. Evelyn handed me a rose, its petals deep red against my pale skin. I've kept quite a collection of Lorraine's little schemes over the years. Letters, receipts, recorded conversations. Insurance, I called it. Never thought I'd need it. I stared at her, understanding dawning. You've been gathering evidence? For 30 years. She smiled, but there was steel beneath the grandmotherly warmth. The question is, what will you do with it? Before I could answer, Daniel's voice cut through the evening air. Vivian, phone call. It's Marcus. Lorraine appeared behind him in the doorway, her face a mask of concerned motherly worry. Darling, you're looking quite flushed. Is everything all right? I met her gaze, saw the challenge there. She thought she had me cornered, that this call from Marcus, which she'd no doubt orchestrated, would be the final push to break me. Everything's fine, I said, my voice steady. Actually, I've been meaning to invite Marcus over for dinner. It's been too long since we've all been together, hasn't it? As a family? The flash of uncertainty in Lorraine's eyes was worth every moment of pain she'd caused. She hadn't expected me to push back, to turn her weapon into my shield. What a lovely idea, Evelyn said, her voice carrying clearly across the garden. I have so many old stories to share, so many interesting things I've saved over the years. Lorraine's smile froze just for a moment, but it was enough. I saw it. Evelyn saw it, and now we both knew. The game was changing. I found the credit card statements in Robert's study while searching for more of Lorraine's letters. They spilled from a drawer left carelessly open, a cascade of red numbers and past due notices. My hands shook as I scanned the documents. Luxury purchases, spa treatments, and something else that made my blood run cold. Regular payments to a private investigator. Marcus arrived for dinner exactly on time, looking uncomfortable in his pressed shirt. Lorraine swooped in before I could greet him, steering him toward the dining room with practiced grace. Marcus, darling, tell us about that new project you're working on. She poured wine with a steady hand. The one keeping you at the office so late. I watched Daniel's expression tighten. The trap was obvious. Too obvious. But then Lorraine reached for her purse and I saw something that made my heart stop. A familiar cream-colored envelope, identical to the ones I'd been receiving. Actually, Marcus said, clearing his throat, I wanted to discuss something else. Vivian, those marketing reports you handled before leaving, there are some irregularities. Lorraine's hand jerked, wine sloshing over the rim of her glass. Surely this isn't the time. Financial discrepancies, Marcus continued, meeting my eyes. Large sums being redirected to personal accounts. The audit team is very interested. The room went silent. Robert looked up from his plate, fork frozen halfway to his mouth. What sort of discrepancies? Nothing that can't be explained. Lorraine cut in smoothly. I'm sure it's all a misunderstanding. More wine, anyone? But I'd seen the flash of panic in her eyes. The pieces clicked together. The investigator, the missing money, the desperate need to discredit me before I could discover her secret. Actually, I said, pulling out my phone, I have some interesting bank statements right here. Would you like to explain them, Lorraine? She knocked over her water glass, but I saw it for what it was, a diversion. As everyone jumped up to help, her hand slipped into her purse again. Don't, I said quietly. Unless you want me to read those letters you've been writing. The ones in your handwriting, matching the anonymous notes about me and Marcus. Daniel's head snapped up. What letters? Vivian is confused, Lorraine said, but her voice wavered. She's been under such strain lately. Show them. Evelyn's voice cut through the tension. She stood in the doorway, holding a thick manila envelope. Show them everything, Lorraine. The letters, the bank statements, the investigators' reports. Or shall I? Lorraine's facade cracked. You don't understand. I had to protect this family. She was going to ruin everything. By discovering your gambling debts? Robert's voice was deadly quiet. Or by exposing how you've been stealing from our accounts? The room spun with accusations and revelations. Daniel stood frozen between his mother and me, his world unraveling with each new disclosure. But it was Marcus who delivered the final blow. The marketing irregularities weren't Vivian's, he said. They were traced to an external account. Your account, Lorraine. You've been embezzling from the company for years. She lunged for her purse, but I was faster. The letters spilled across the table, dozens of them, all in her distinctive handwriting, all designed to destroy me before I could expose her. I trusted you, Daniel whispered. How could you do this to Vivian? To all of us? Lorraine's mask finally shattered. Everything I did for this family. To maintain our position, our respect. By destroying mine? I asked softly. By trying to convince your son I was unfaithful? I needed you gone, she spat. You were getting too close, asking too many questions. I couldn't let you. Enough. Robert's voice cracked like a whip. Enough, Lorraine. It's over. The silence that followed was deafening. In it, I could hear the death of pretense, the collapse of carefully constructed lies. But as I watched Lorraine's world crumble, I felt no satisfaction, only a hollow understanding of what desperation could drive someone to do. Daniel reached for my hand under the table, and I knew this was just the beginning. The truth was out, but its aftermath would reshape us all. The morning after our disastrous dinner, I found Lorraine in the kitchen, calmly making coffee as if nothing had happened. Her composed facade only cracked when she saw the manila envelope in my hands. Evelyn's collection of evidence spanning 3 decades. You've won, she said flatly. What more do you want? I set the envelope on the counter between us. I want to understand why. All these years of manipulation, the lies, the money. You think you understand anything about family? She turned, her fingers white-knuckled around her coffee cup. About sacrifice? I built this life brick by brick. Everything perfect, controlled, safe. Then you arrived with your questions and your career ambitions, threatening to tear it all down. Mom? Daniel's voice made us both freeze. He stood in the doorway, looking older somehow, worn. I just got off the phone with the bank. They're launching a formal investigation. The coffee cup slipped from Lorraine's hands, shattering on the floor. Neither of us moved to clean it up. Daniel, sweetheart, she started, but he cut her off. Don't. He crossed to the counter, picked up the envelope. I need to know everything. No more lies. I watched his face as he read, each page bringing fresh pain. Bank statements showing systematic theft from family accounts. Letters to friends and colleagues spreading vicious rumors about me. Documentation of her gambling debts, hidden behind a wall of respectability. There's more, I said quietly. Marcus sent over the company audit files this morning. Lorraine's head snapped up. You can't. $2 million, I continued, forcing myself to meet Daniel's eyes. Embezzled over 5 years, they're pressing charges. The silence that followed was devastating. Daniel braced himself against the counter, his shoulders shaking. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Why didn't you come to me? To any of us? I couldn't show weakness, Lorraine said. This family needs truth. Daniel's fist came down hard on the counter. We needed a mother, not a puppet master. Robert appeared in the doorway, his face grave. The police are here. Everything happened too quickly after that. Officers reading rights, Lorraine's quiet dignity crumbling as they led her away. I found myself in our bedroom, mechanically packing a bag, when Evelyn appeared. You're leaving? She asked, though it wasn't really a question. Just for a few days. Daniel needs space to process everything, and I folded the same shirt for the 3rd time, unable to finish the thought. And you're worried you've become what you fought against, she finished. That in exposing Lorraine's manipulation, you've manipulated everyone yourself. My hands stilled. Haven't I? There's a difference between justice and revenge, dear. The question is, which one were you really after? Before I could answer, Daniel appeared in the doorway. Don't go, he said. Please. I looked at the half-packed bag, at Evelyn's knowing smile as she slipped away, at my husband's haunted eyes. I don't want to make things worse. You didn't make this mess. He crossed the room, took the shirt from my hands. Mom did, and now we need to decide what kind of family we want to be. Together. The word hung between us like a promise and a question. Downstairs, I could hear Robert talking with the police, his voice breaking as he described years of deception. The foundation of our family was cracking, but maybe that's what we needed. To break apart before we could rebuild. Together, I agreed, but added, "But Daniel, there's something else you need to know. Something about why I really left my job last year." His face tensed, preparing for another blow. But this truth was different. One that might finally free us both from the web of lies we'd been living in. I reached for my old work laptop, buried in the closet for months. "It's time you saw what I found in the company files. About your mother, yes, but also about your father's business partners. About why Lorraine was really so desperate to keep me quiet. The truth would hurt, but silence had hurt us more. It was time to tear down the last walls of pretense, whatever the cost." Robert's 60th birthday party loomed like a gathering storm. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the elaborate cake I'd ordered, the one meant to be my peace offering, my way of proving to the family that I could be the daughter-in-law Lorraine never thought I was. "She's being released on bail tomorrow morning." Daniel's words cut through my thoughts. He leaned against the doorframe, tie loosened, looking exhausted. "Just in time for the party." "Of course she is." My laugh came out bitter. Heaven forbid Lorraine Mitchell miss a chance to maintain appearances. The laptop sat between us on the counter, its screen still showing the damning evidence. Not just of Lorraine's crimes, but of Robert's business partner's involvement in a scheme that made her embezzlement look trivial. The truth we hadn't yet shared with him. "We have to tell him," I said, "before she comes home and spins another web of lies. It's his birthday, Vivian. The whole family will be here." "Exactly. Perfect timing for—" The kitchen door swung open. Evelyn entered, her face grave. "Robert's on the phone with Lorraine's lawyer. She's claiming you planted the evidence." My hands gripped the counter. "What?" "She's saying you orchestrated everything, the audit, the investigation, all of it, to destroy her. That you're trying to take control of the family business." Daniel's phone buzzed. He checked it, his face darkening. "Marcus just got served with a cease and desist order. The company's lawyers are backing off the investigation." The room spun. All our careful plans, the evidence we'd gathered, the truth we'd fought to expose. Lorraine was dismantling it all from her jail cell. "The party," Evelyn said suddenly. "Everyone who matters will be there. The board members, the partners, the family friends. One last grand performance for Lorraine Mitchell." I looked at the cake, its perfect frosting suddenly seeming obscene. Unless what?" Daniel asked. But I could see in his eyes he already knew. I opened the laptop again, pulled up the files I'd kept hidden for months. "Unless we give them a different kind of show. One where everyone's secrets come out at once." "It would destroy them," Daniel whispered. "My father's reputation, the company, everything." "They destroyed themselves," Evelyn said quietly. "We're just turning on the lights." The doorbell rang. Early guests arriving for the party preparations. Daniel straightened his tie, the weight of decision heavy in his movements. "Do it," he said finally. "All of it. I'm tired of living in shadows." I nodded, but as he left to greet the guests, Evelyn caught my arm. "Are you sure you're ready for what comes next? This isn't just about Lorraine anymore." She was right. In my pursuit of justice against Lorraine, I'd uncovered a rot that went deeper than family drama. The company's illegal dealings, Robert's willful ignorance, the web of lies that had enriched them all while destroying others. It was bigger than our personal vendetta now. The sound of laughter drifted in from the living room. Soon the house would be full of people wearing masks of civility, hiding decades of deceit. And tomorrow, Lorraine would walk free, ready to reclaim her throne. I touched the laptop's power button, feeling the weight of everything it contained. "What's that thing you told me about karma, Evelyn?" "That it's not about revenge," she said, watching me carefully. "It's about restoration of balance." More voices joined the growing chorus in the other room. Soon Robert would cut his cake, make his speech, accept congratulations from the very people who'd helped build his empire on fraud. "Then let's restore some balance," I said, and began to type. The party would start in an hour. The cake would be served, speeches made, photos taken. And somewhere between the first toast and the final goodbye, years of carefully constructed lies would come crashing down. I just hope Daniel could forgive me for what I was about to do to his family's legacy. Lorraine's entrance silenced the room. She swept in wearing cream silk, not a hair out of place, as if she hadn't spent the previous night in a jail cell. The party guests parted before her like waves, their whispered conversations dying mid-sentence. I stood by the cake table, my finger hovering over the send button on my phone. One press and every document, every piece of evidence would go to the press, the police, the board members, the nuclear option. Darling. Lorraine's voice carried across the room as she approached Robert. I wouldn't have missed this for the world. Daniel caught my eye from across the room, a silent question in his gaze. I nodded slightly, watching as he moved toward the audiovisual setup we'd prepared. Before we cut the cake, Lorraine announced, commanding attention effortlessly, I have something to say. She turned to face the crowd, tears glistening perfectly in her eyes. My family has been through a terrible ordeal, thanks to certain accusations. My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. Company lawyers are here. They know. But today, Lorraine continued, we celebrate not just my husband's birthday, but the triumph of truth over malice. The projector hummed to life behind her. This was our moment. Our carefully orchestrated exposure of decades of fraud and manipulation. But as I looked at Daniel's face, at Robert's proud smile, at the gathering of innocent people about to have their lives shattered, my finger froze over the button. Lorraine saw my hesitation. Her smile widened. In fact, I have an announcement to make. The room shifted as two men in suits entered, followed by police officers. Not part of our plan. Not part of anything we'd prepared for. Mrs. Carter, one of the suits said, approaching me. We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of corporate espionage and attempted extortion. The phone slipped from my hand, clattering to the floor. Lorraine's voice cut through the shocked murmurs. I tried to protect this family from her schemes, but some people simply cannot be trusted. That's not true, I started, but the officer was already reading my rights. Daniel moved toward me, but Robert caught his arm, whispering something urgent in his ear. The evidence, Evelyn's voice cracked through the chaos. Show them. Has been corrupted, Lorraine interrupted smoothly. Manufactured by a desperate woman trying to destroy this family. The real evidence shows quite a different story. I watched in horror as she produced a familiar-looking laptop. My laptop, but not the one I'd left in the kitchen. This one had been tampered with, its contents altered to tell a very different story. Check her phone, Lorraine suggested to the officers. I believe you'll find everything you need there. But my phone lay shattered on the floor where I'd dropped it. Its screen black, the evidence locked away or possibly already deleted by whatever digital sleight of hand Lorraine had orchestrated. Daniel finally broke free from his father's grip. This isn't right, he began, but stopped short as Robert stepped forward. Son, he said quietly, we have proof that your wife has been attempting to manipulate company records for months. The board has already reviewed it. The handcuffs felt cold against my wrists. Through the blur of tears, I saw Marcus being escorted out by the other officers, his face grim. Evelyn stood frozen, her carefully gathered evidence now worthless against Lorraine's masterful countermove. I did warn you, dear, Lorraine whispered as they led me past her. Some battles aren't worth fighting. The last thing I saw before they took me away was Daniel's face, confused, betrayed, angry, as Robert showed him something on his phone. Whatever doctored evidence they had, it was enough to make my own husband doubt me. The birthday cake sat forgotten on the table, its cheerful message mocking me as the officers led me through the door. Here's to truth and family. I'd thought I was playing chess, but Lorraine had been playing a different game entirely. And she'd just checkmated me in front of everyone who mattered. The holding cell was cold, but Lorraine's smile was colder as she sat across from me, separated by bulletproof glass. 3 days since the party, and she'd finally deigned to visit. I brought you something. She slid a manila envelope through the slot. Inside were divorce papers, Daniel's signature already in place. My hands shook, but I didn't open them. Why are you here? To offer you a deal, Sign these, walk away quietly, and all charges disappear. She leaned forward, perfectly manicured nails tapping the glass. Otherwise, the door buzzed. Daniel walked in, followed by Evelyn and, surprisingly, Robert. Lorraine's composure cracked for just a moment. "What are you doing here?" she hissed at Robert, "showing them what I found in your private safe." He placed a USB drive on the counter. "The real records, the ones you thought I was too stupid to find." Lorraine's face went ash-white. "Robert, don't play it," Daniel said quietly. The guard brought in a laptop. The video started playing. Lorraine in her office, methodically doctoring company records, making calls about surveillance on me, orchestrating the entire scheme. "Turn it off," Lorraine commanded, but her voice had lost its authority. "There's more," Evelyn said, producing a familiar cream-colored envelope. "The original template for those anonymous letters you sent. Found it in your desk drawer, right where you always kept your special stationery." "You broke into your house?" I interrupted. "Like you broke into my life? My marriage, my career? I protected this family." Lorraine slammed her hand against the glass. "Everything I did was to keep us safe, to keep our status, to keep your control." Robert cut in. The gambling debts, the embezzlement, the manipulation, it was all about control. Daniel stepped closer to the glass. "The police have everything now, Mom. The real evidence, Marcus's testimony, your private accounts." "You wouldn't," Lorraine whispered. "I'm your mother. You're a stranger." Daniel's voice cracked. "And you tried to destroy the woman I love." Lorraine's facade finally shattered. She lunged at the glass, all pretense of dignity gone. "She'll ruin everything. She'll change everything, just like she changed you." "No, Lorraine," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." The guard appeared. "Mrs. Mitchell, the detectives are ready for you." As they led her away, she turned back one last time. "I only wanted what was best for this family." "No," Evelyn said. "You wanted what was best for yourself. There's a difference." The divorce papers still sat untouched on the counter. Daniel picked them up, tore them in half. "The company lawyers are withdrawing all charges," Robert said. "And I've called an emergency board meeting. It's time for some changes." "Changes?" I asked. "Starting with new leadership." He looked at Daniel. "If you're ready." Daniel took my hand through the slot in the glass. "We're ready, together." The guard returned with release papers. As I gathered my belongings, Evelyn touched my arm. "You know she won't go quietly," she warned. "Even from jail, Lorraine will try to fight this." "Let her," I said. "Some battles are worth fighting." Outside, the morning sun felt different somehow. Cleaner. Daniel wrapped his arm around me as we walked to the car, past reporters already gathering for the story of the Mitchell family's fall from grace. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for doubting, even for a moment." "We all doubted," I said. "That was her power, but not anymore." Robert cleared his throat. "The house will be quiet without her." "Good," Evelyn said firmly. "We've had enough drama for several lifetimes." As we drove away, I caught a glimpse of Lorraine being led to another police car, her cream silk replaced by orange jumpsuit. Our eyes met briefly, and I saw something I'd never seen before in her gaze. Fear. The game was over. And this time, truth had won. The Mitchell house felt different as I packed away Lorraine's carefully curated family photos. Each frame held perfectly posed smiles, a museum of manufactured happiness that had dominated these walls for decades. "Leave that one," Evelyn said, pointing to a dusty frame I'd nearly missed. It showed a younger Lorraine, unguarded, laughing with Robert at some forgotten moment. Sometimes it's worth remembering people as they were, not as they became. The sentencing hearing had been brief. Lorraine sat straight-backed in her orange jumpsuit, pride intact even as the judge read out her crimes. When offered a chance to speak, she'd looked directly at me. "I'm not sorry for protecting what I built," she'd said. but I am sorry for what I destroyed in the process. Now, as I carefully wrapped the photo in tissue paper, Daniel appeared in the doorway. Marcus called. The board approved the restructuring plan. We're reinstating everyone who was forced out under Mom's leadership. Including me? I asked, managing a small smile. He crossed the room, pulled me close. Especially you. Though I hear the new CEO's wife might face accusations of favoritism. Let them talk. I leaned into him. We've survived worse rumors. Robert cleared his throat from the hallway. If you're finished with the photos, there's something else. He held out an envelope, cream-colored, but this time bearing Lorraine's prison return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, covered in her precise handwriting. The combination to my private safe is Daniel's birthday. Inside, you'll find everything. The real records, the names of everyone I hurt, the truths I buried. Use them wisely. And Vivian, thank you for breaking my perfect prison before it destroyed us all. My hands trembled as I read it again. Why now? Because sometimes, Evelyn said softly, the greatest act of love is admitting you were wrong. The doorbell rang. Marcus, arriving for our first official board meeting as the new leadership team. But before we left, I had one last thing to do. In the kitchen, I opened the cookbook Lorraine had never let anyone touch. Inside, hidden between pages of unused recipes, I found what I expected. More letters, more secrets, more weapons she'd planned to use. What should we do with them? Daniel asked. I carried them to the fireplace where Robert had already started a small blaze. One by one, I fed the letters to the flames. Some stories don't need to be told, I said. Some battles don't need to be won. Speaking of battles, Marcus called from the doorway, waving his phone. You might want to see this. The message was from my old marketing firm. Time to come home? Your office is waiting. I looked around at my unlikely family. Daniel's strength, Robert's redemption, Evelyn's wisdom, Marcus's loyalty. At the spaces where Lorraine's control had once suffocated us all, now filled with something harder to name but stronger to hold. I am home, I said, and deleted the message. Later, as we gathered around the dining table, no perfect place settings, no artificial conversations, Evelyn brought out a cake. Not elaborate or expertly decorated, but real. Honest. To new beginnings, Robert proposed, raising his glass. To truth, Daniel added. To family, I said, meeting Evelyn's knowing smile. The kind we choose to be. As we cut into the cake, I noticed the empty chair at the end of the table. It would always be there. That space where Lorraine had ruled her perfect kingdom. But now it stood as a reminder. Not of what we'd lost, but of what we'd found in its place. The late afternoon sun caught the dusty photo I'd left unpacked, making Lorraine's young, genuine laugh shine like a message from a different time. Some prisons, I realized, lock from the inside. And sometimes the key to freedom isn't revenge or justice, but simply the courage to be imperfectly, unashamedly real.
The shrill ring of my phone pierced the silence, jolting me awake. I fumbled for it in the dark, my heart racing. Who could be calling at this ungodly hour? Sophie? It's Henry. You need to come to the hospital right away. My father-in-law's voice trembled, and I felt a chill run down my spine. What happened? Is Mark okay? Just come quickly. Anne's already here. I threw on clothes and rushed out the door, my mind reeling. Mark had been working late again, probably to appease his mother's endless demands for a better lifestyle. Now he was in the hospital, and of course, Anne had beaten me there. The emergency room was a blur of harsh lights and antiseptic smells. I spotted Henry's slumped form in a corner and hurried over. Where is he? What happened? Henry looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. Car accident. He's in surgery now. Before I could ask more, Anne's voice cut through the air like a knife. Well, it's about time you showed up. What kind of wife are you, anyway? I turned to face my mother-in-law, her perfectly coiffed hair somehow immaculate even at 3 a.m. I came as soon as I heard Anne. How is he? She sniffed disdainfully. As if you care. If you were a proper wife, he wouldn't have been out so late in the first place. I bit back a retort, reminding myself that we were all worried about Mark. Have the doctors said anything? Nothing you need to concern yourself with, Anne said dismissively. I'm his mother. I'll handle everything. Henry placed a gentle hand on my arm. The doctor should be out soon with an update. We waited in tense silence, the minutes crawling by. Finally, a tired-looking surgeon approached. Mrs. Caldwell? He asked, looking between Anne and me. That's me, Anne said, stepping forward. I'm Mark's mother. The doctor's eyes flickered to me, but Anne steamrolled on. How is my son? Mr. Caldwell is stable now. The surgery went well, but there were complications. My heart clenched. What kind of complications? The doctor hesitated, glancing at Anne again. Perhaps we should discuss this privately? Anne waved a hand imperiously. Nonsense. We're all family here. What is it? The surgeon took a deep breath. During the examination, we found evidence of recent drug use, cocaine specifically. It likely contributed to the accident. The world tilted beneath my feet. Cocaine? Mark? It didn't make sense. Anne's face went from shock to fury in an instant. That's preposterous. My son would never touch drugs. This is clearly medical malpractice. I found my voice. Doctor, are you certain? He nodded gravely. The blood tests were conclusive. Anne rounded on me, her eyes blazing. This is your fault. You've driven him to this with your constant nagging and inability to be a proper wife. I recoiled as if slapped. How dare you? I had no idea. Of course you didn't, Anne sneered. You're too self-absorbed to notice anything about my poor boy. Henry tried to intervene. Anne, please, this isn't helping. Stay out of this, she snapped at her husband before turning back to me. I always knew you weren't good enough for Mark. Now look what's happened. The doctor cleared his throat uncomfortably. Mrs. Caldwell, perhaps we should focus on Mr. Caldwell's recovery. Anne ignored him, jabbing a finger at my chest. You listen to me. When Mark wakes up, we're going to fix this mess you've created, and you'll do exactly as I say, or so, help me, I'll make sure you never see a penny of his money again. I stared at her, stunned by the venom in her voice. In that moment, something inside me snapped. The years of belittling, of constant criticism, of being made to feel less than, it all came crashing down. No, I said quietly. Anne blinked, clearly not expecting resistance. What did you say? I straightened my spine, meeting her gaze. I said no, Anne. I won't be your scapegoat anymore. This ends now. As Anne's face purpled with rage, I realized my life was about to change forever. And for the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope. I stood in front of the full-length mirror, scrutinizing my reflection. The designer dress Anne had suggested I wear to tonight's charity gala clung uncomfortably, a constant reminder of how I didn't quite fit into this world. Sophie, are you ready yet? Mark's impatient voice called from downstairs. I sighed, slipping on the painfully high heels that completed the ensemble. Coming. As I descended the stairs, Mark's eyes widened appreciatively. Wow, you look different. Different good or different bad? I asked, suddenly self-conscious. Before he could answer, the front door burst open. Anne swept in, resplendent in a shimmering gown that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage. Oh, good, you're both ready, she said, her critical gaze sweeping over me. Well, Sophie, I suppose that will have to do. At least you're making an effort for once. I bit my tongue, reminding myself that starting an argument now would only make us late. Mark, as usual, said nothing to defend me. The gala was a whirlwind of air kisses, forced smiles, and pretentious small talk. I clung to my champagne flute like a lifeline, trying to keep up with Anne's rapid-fire introductions. And this is my son Mark, she gushed to yet another important-looking couple. He's just made partner at his firm. We're so proud. The man nodded approvingly. Impressive. And this must be... Sophie, I supplied when Anne didn't immediately introduce me. Mark's wife. Oh, yes, Anne said with a dismissive wave. Sophie's between jobs at the moment. I felt my cheeks burn. Actually, I've been exploring some new career options. Darling, Anne cut me off, her smile never wavering. Why don't you fetch us some more champagne? As I walked away, I heard her stage whisper, She's still finding her way, bless her heart. I retreated to a quiet corner, fighting back tears of frustration. This was my life now, constantly belittled, never good enough. You look like you could use this more than me, a kind voice said. I turned to see Henry holding out a fresh glass of champagne. Thanks, I said gratefully. How do you do it, Henry? How do you put up with all of this? He sighed, his eyes sad. It wasn't always like this, you know. Anne, she's changed over the years. become harder. I sometimes wonder if I even know her anymore. Before I could respond, Mark appeared at my elbow. There you are. Mother's been looking for you. She wants to introduce us to the Andersons. I plastered on a smile. Of course, wouldn't want to disappoint her. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of fake laughter and thinly veiled insults. By the time we got home, I was exhausted, physically and emotionally. Well, that wasn't so bad, was it? Mark said as we got ready for bed. Mother seemed pleased. I couldn't hold back anymore. Of course she was pleased, Mark. She got to parade you around like a show pony while treating me like I was invisible. He frowned. Come on, Sophie. You're exaggerating. Mother's just particular. Particular? I laughed bitterly. Is that what we're calling it now? Look, I know she can be difficult sometimes, but... Difficult, Mark, she's destroying me. Can't you see that? His expression hardened. You knew what my family was like when you married me. If you can't handle it... Handle it? I interrupted, my voice rising. I've been handling it for years, but I can't do it anymore. Not alone. Mark's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it distractedly. We'll talk about this later, okay? I have to take this call. As he left the room, already deep in conversation, I felt something inside me crumble. I was losing myself, piece by piece, trying to fit into a world that would never accept me. Lying in bed that night, listening to Mark's steady breathing beside me, I made a decision. Something had to change. And if no one else was going to do it, it would have to be me. I stood in our kitchen, surrounded by the chaos of last-minute party preparations. The aroma of roasting chicken filled the air, mingling with the scent of fresh-cut flowers. This family gathering was my last-ditch effort to smooth things over, to prove to Anne, and maybe to myself, that I could be the perfect daughter-in-law she always wanted. The doorbell rang, and I smoothed down my dress, taking a deep breath. Showtime, I muttered. Mark answered the door, greeting his parents with forced cheerfulness. Anne swept in, her critical gaze immediately taking in every detail of our home. Sophie, dear, she said, air-kissing my cheek. I do hope you haven't gone to too much trouble. You know how I worry about you overtaxing yourself. I plastered on a smile. No trouble at all, Anne. I'm happy to host. Henry gave me a warm hug. It smells wonderful in here, Sophie. You've outdone yourself. As we settled in the living room, Anne wasted no time in taking control of the conversation. Mark, darling, tell me about that big case you're working on. The Hendersons, wasn't it? Mark launched into a detailed explanation of his latest legal triumph, while Anne hung on every word. I sat quietly, feeling increasingly invisible. Sophie, Henry said softly, noticing my discomfort, why don't you tell us about your new interests? Mark mentioned you've been exploring some options. I perked up, grateful for the opening. Actually, I've been looking into financial planning courses. I think it could be a really rewarding career path. Anne's laugh cut through the air like glass. Oh, Sophie, always with these little flights of fancy. Wouldn't you be better off focusing on being a good wife? After all, Mark works so hard to provide for you. I felt my cheeks burn. It's not a flight of fancy, Anne. I'm serious about this. Of course you are, dear, she said patronizingly. Just like you were serious about that pottery class last year? Or was it painting? Mark chuckled uncomfortably. Mother has a point, Sophie. You do tend to jump from one thing to another. I stood abruptly. I should check on dinner. In the kitchen, I gripped the counter, trying to steady my breathing. This was not going as planned. The evening continued to unravel. During dinner, Anne critiqued everything from my choice of wine to the doneness of the chicken. I bit my tongue, determined to keep the peace. As I cleared the plates, I overheard Anne speaking to Mark in a low voice. Darling, I'm worried about Sophie. She seems unstable. Perhaps you should reconsider your position on children. A baby might give her some purpose. The plate I was holding slipped from my grasp, shattering on the floor. Silence fell as all eyes turned to me. Sophie? Mark said, concern lacing his voice. Are you all right? I looked up, meeting Anne's smug gaze. Something inside me snapped. No, I said quietly. No, I'm not all right. I'm tired of being belittled, criticized, and treated like I'm not good enough. I'm tired of my husband not standing up for me, and I'm especially tired of you, Anne, thinking you can run my life. Anne's eyes widened in shock. Well, I never... No, you never do you? I interrupted. You never consider anyone's feelings but your own. You've made my life miserable for years, and I'm done. Mark stood, his face a mask of confusion and anger. "Sophie, that's enough. You're embarrassing yourself." I laughed bitterly. "Of course, God forbid I embarrass you in front of Mommy Dearest. Heaven knows you'd never want to disappoint her, not even when it means destroying your marriage." The room fell silent. Henry looked at me with a mixture of sympathy and admiration. Anne's face had gone pale with fury. And Mark just looked lost. I took a deep breath, suddenly feeling lighter than I had in years. "I think it's time for everyone to leave. This party is over." As I walked out of the room, leaving behind the shattered remains of both the plate and my marriage, I realized that this was just the beginning. The real battle was yet to come. The brush glided across the canvas, leaving behind swirls of vibrant blue and deep purple. I lost myself in the rhythm of painting, my mind finally quiet after weeks of turmoil. The online art therapy class had been a lifeline, a way to process the emotional storm brewing inside me. As I rinsed my brush, my phone buzzed. A text from Mark. "Working late again, don't wait up." I sighed, unsurprised. Since the disastrous family dinner, Mark had been distant, burying himself in work. We barely spoke anymore, the silence between us growing like a chasm. Determined not to let it ruin my evening, I turned back to my painting, but my hand trembled, and a streak of blue marred the carefully crafted image. "Damn it," I muttered, tossing the brush aside. My gaze fell on the stack of financial planning books hidden behind my easel. I'd been devouring them in secret, finding an unexpected passion in the world of numbers and investments. It was a far cry from the aimless housewife Anne accused me of being. Settling into my favorite armchair, I opened the top book, losing myself in chapters on portfolio management and risk assessment. Hours slipped by unnoticed. The sound of the front door startled me. I glanced at the clock, 2 a.m. Mark stumbled in, his tie askew and eyes bloodshot. "Sophie?" he slurred, surprised to see me awake. "What are you doing up?" I quickly shoved the book under a cushion. "Just couldn't sleep. Are you okay? You look terrible." He waved off my concern. Fine. Big win at work. Celebrated a bit." As he lurched towards the stairs, a piece of paper fell from his pocket. I picked it up, my blood running cold as I read the handwritten note. "Mark," I called out, my voice shaking. "What is this?" He turned, his eyes widening as he saw what I was holding. It's nothing. Give it here." But I held it out of reach, reading aloud. "Thanks for a wonderful evening. Can't wait for our next meeting. Love, Cassandra." I looked up at him, tears stinging my eyes. "Who's Cassandra, Mark?" He ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking very sober. "Sophie, it's not what you think." "Don't," I cut him off. "Don't you dare lie to me. How long has this been going on?" Mark's shoulders sagged. "A few months. It just happened. I was feeling stressed, and she was there, and I wasn't," I finished bitterly, "because I was too busy trying to be the perfect wife for you and your mother." He reached for me, but I stepped back. "Sophie, please. We can work this out. I'll end it with Cassandra. I promise." I laughed, a hollow sound. "Work it out? Like we've worked out every other problem in our marriage? By sweeping it under the rug and pretending everything's fine?" "What do you want me to do?" he asked, frustration creeping into his voice. "I want you to stand up for me," I shouted. "I want you to choose me over your mother's expectations. I want you to see me as a person, not just an accessory to your perfect life." Mark's face hardened. "That's not fair. I've given you everything." "Everything except respect," I interrupted. "Everything except partnership." We stood in silence, the weight of unspoken words hanging between us. Finally, Mark spoke. "I need some air. We'll talk about this in the morning." As the door closed behind him, I sank to the floor, my mind reeling. The life I'd built, the compromises I'd made, it all seemed like a house of cards, crumbling around me. I glanced at my painting, the marred canvas, a fitting metaphor for my marriage. Then my eyes fell on the financial planning book, peeking out from under the cushion. In that moment, I made a decision. I was done being a passive observer in my own life. It was time to take control, to build something for myself. As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, I opened my laptop and began researching night classes in financial planning. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope. I stood in front of Anne's imposing mansion, my heart pounding. The weight of the financial planning course brochure in my purse felt like a talisman, giving me strength. Today was the day I'd finally stand up to my mother-in-law. The door swung open before I could knock. Anne's perfectly coiffed hair and immaculate suit made me feel shabby in comparison. "Sophie, dear," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "What a surprise. Mark didn't mention you'd be joining us for lunch." I stepped inside, squaring my shoulders. "He doesn't know I'm here. I came to talk to you, Anne. Alone." Her eyebrows arched. "Oh, well, this should be interesting. Come into the parlor." As we sat, Anne's critical gaze swept over me. "I do hope everything's all right. Mark's been working such long hours lately. I worry he's under too much stress." I bit back a bitter laugh. If only she knew the real reason for those long hours. "Actually, Anne, that's part of why I'm here," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "I've made a decision. I'm going back to school." Her patronizing smile didn't waver. "Oh, Sophie, another hobby? What is it this time? Basket weaving?" I pulled out the brochure, sliding it across the coffee table. "Financial planning. I've already been accepted into the program." Anne's smile faltered as she glanced at the paper. "Don't be ridiculous. You can't possibly be serious about this." "I am serious," I insisted. "I'm good at it, Anne. And more importantly, I enjoy it." She leaned back, her eyes narrowing. "And how do you expect to manage this little adventure? You can barely keep up with your duties as Mark's wife as it is." The old familiar shame crept up, but I pushed it down. "My duties as Mark's wife? You mean the endless social events, the constant pressure to be perfect, the turning a blind eye to his affairs?" Anne's face paled. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" I countered, my voice rising. "You've known about Cassandra all along, haven't you? That's why you've been pushing so hard for grandchildren, to save your precious son's marriage." She stood abruptly, her composure cracking. "How dare you? Mark would never." "He would, and he has," I interrupted. "But that's not even the point. The point is, I'm done living my life to please you and Mark. I'm taking control of my own future." Anne's eyes flashed dangerously. "If you think I'll stand by and watch you destroy this family—" "You've been destroying this family for years," I shouted, surprising myself with my vehemence. "Your constant criticism, your manipulation, your refusal to see anyone else's needs but your own. Well, I'm done. I'm going to school, I'm going to have a career, and there's nothing you can do to stop me." She stepped closer, her voice low and threatening. "Oh, but there is. One word from me, and Mark will cut you off without a penny. How will you pay for your little classes then?" I felt a calm settle over me, the certainty of my decision solidifying. "Go ahead. Do your worst, Anne, because I'd rather struggle on my own than live another day under your thumb." The shock on her face was almost comical. For once, Anne was speechless. I turned to leave, pausing at the door. "Oh, and Anne, you might want to have a chat with Mark about his extracurricular activities. I have a feeling he'll be needing a good lawyer soon." As I walked out of that house, my steps light and my head held high, I felt a sense of freedom I hadn't experienced in years. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time, it was my road to choose. My phone buzzed. A text from Mark asking where I was. I hesitated for a moment, then turned it off. It was time to start writing my own story, one where I was the author of my own life, not just a character in someone else's drama. The future was uncertain, but as I drove away from Anne's mansion, I felt a surge of excitement. Whatever came next, I was ready to face it on my own terms. I stood in our bedroom, surrounded by half-packed suitcases and a lifetime of memories. My hands trembled as I folded another shirt, the finality of my decision weighing heavily on me. After years of trying to fit into a world that never truly accepted me, I was leaving. The front door slammed, and Mark's voice echoed through the house. "Sophie, are you home?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation I knew was coming. "Up here," I called out. His footsteps thundered up the stairs, and he burst into the room, his face a mix of anger and confusion. "What the hell is going on? Mother just called me, ranting about you threatening to destroy our family. And now, what is all this?" I met his gaze steadily. "I'm leaving, Mark. I can't do this anymore." He stared at the suitcases, realization dawning. "You can't be serious. Sophie, whatever's wrong, we can fix it. Just stop packing and let's talk about this." "Talk?" I laughed bitterly. "When have we ever really talked, Mark? When have you ever listened to me instead of your mother?" His jaw clenched. "That's not fair. I've always supported you." "Supported me?" I interrupted. "Is that what you call it? Letting your mother belittle me at every turn? Cheating on me with Cassandra? Mark paled. How did you... Sophie, that was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. It meant everything, I shouted, years of pent-up frustration pouring out. It meant that I wasn't enough for you, that no matter how hard I tried to be the perfect wife, to fit into this life, it would never be enough. He reached for me, but I stepped back. Please, Sophie, we can work this out. I'll end things with Cassandra. I'll talk to Mother. It's too late, I said softly. I've already made my decision. I'm going back to school, Mark. I'm going to build a life for myself, one that doesn't revolve around pleasing you or your mother. Mark's expression hardened. And how exactly do you plan to do that? You have no money, no career. You need me. His words stung, but I refused to let him see how much. I'll figure it out. I'd rather struggle on my own than live another day in this gilded cage. Just then, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face tightening. It's Mother. She's on her way over. Panic flared in my chest. I wasn't ready for another confrontation with Anne. I have to go, I said, hastily zipping up my suitcase. Mark grabbed my arm. Sophie, wait. You can't just leave like this. What about our vows? What about the life we've built? I looked around the room at the expensive furnishings and designer clothes. This isn't the life I built, Mark. It's the life your mother designed for us, and I can't live it anymore. The sound of a car pulling up made us both freeze. Anne's voice carried from outside, shrill and demanding. Mark's grip on my arm tightened. Please, Sophie, don't do this. We can make it work. I love you. For a moment I wavered. The familiar pull of our shared history, the comfort of the known, tugged at me. But then I thought of the years of criticism, of feeling invisible, of compromising myself to fit someone else's expectations. I gently removed his hand. I'm sorry, Mark, but I need to love myself more. Grabbing my suitcase, I hurried down the stairs. Anne was just reaching the front door as I yanked it open. Sophie! She exclaimed, her eyes widening at the sight of my luggage. What do you think you're doing? I straightened my spine, meeting her gaze. Goodbye, Anne. I hope you're happy now. You finally have Mark all to yourself. As I brushed past her, heading towards my car, I heard Mark calling my name. The temptation to look back was overwhelming, but I kept my eyes forward. Sliding into the driver's seat, I caught a glimpse of them in the rearview mirror. Mark, looking lost and confused, and Anne, her face a mask of fury. For a moment, my resolve wavered. But as I started the engine, a sense of lightness washed over me. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, it was mine to choose. I pulled away from the curb, leaving behind the life I'd known, and driving towards a future full of possibility. Whatever came next, I was ready to face it on my own terms. I stood in front of the mirror in my childhood bedroom, barely recognizing the woman staring back at me. It had been 3 months since I'd left Mark. 3 months of rebuilding my life from the ground up. My father, Benjamin, had welcomed me with open arms, no questions asked. Sophie? Dad's voice called from downstairs. There's someone here to see you. My heart raced. Was it Mark? Anne? I took a deep breath and descended the stairs, only to find Henry, my former father-in-law, standing awkwardly in the living room. Henry? I said, surprised. What are you doing here? He looked older, more tired than I remembered. Sophie, I needed to talk to you. Things have gotten out of hand. We sat down and Henry began to explain. Mark had spiraled since I left, drinking heavily and neglecting his work. Anne, in her desperation to maintain appearances, had been covering for him, but the cracks were showing. She's pushing him to file for divorce, Henry said, his voice heavy. She wants to paint you as the villain, take everything you might be entitled to. I felt a surge of anger, quickly followed by fear. I had no resources, no lawyer. How could I fight this? There's more, Henry continued. Anne, she's been manipulating Mark's finances for years, hiding assets, evading taxes. I think she's afraid you might know something, might expose her. My mind reeled. The perfect, pristine Anne involved in financial fraud? It was almost too much to comprehend. Why are you telling me this? I asked, suspicion creeping in. Henry's eyes met mine, filled with regret. Because I should have stood up to her years ago. I should have protected you, Sophie, and now I want to make it right. He handed me a USB drive. Everything's on here. Bank statements, offshore accounts, all of it. Use it if you need to. As Henry left, I sat there, stunned. The USB drive felt like a ticking time bomb in my hand. Dad placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "What are you going to do, sweetheart?" I looked up at him, determination setting in. "I'm going to fight." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I threw myself into my financial planning studies with renewed vigor, now seeing them not just as a career path, but as armor against Anne's attacks. I consulted with a lawyer, using my meager savings to prepare for the battle ahead. Then, one evening, as I pored over my textbooks, my phone rang. It was Mark. "Sophie," he slurred, clearly drunk. "I miss you. Please come home." My heart ached, but I steeled myself. "Mark, we've been over this. I can't come back." "You don't understand," he said, his voice breaking. "Mother, she's out of control. She's threatening to cut me off if I don't go through with the divorce. I don't know what to do." I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. "Mark, listen to me. You need to stand up to her. For once in your life, you need to make your own decisions." "I can't," he shouted. "I'm nothing without her, without the family name, and now I'm losing you too. I can't take it anymore." There was a loud crash, and the line went dead. Panic seized me. I dialed Mark's number again and again. But there was no answer. With shaking hands, I called Henry. "Henry, something's wrong." Mark called me. He sounded desperate. I think he might do something stupid. Henry's voice was grim. "I'll go check on him. Sophie, whatever happens, stay strong. Don't let Anne manipulate you." As I hung up, I felt the weight of everything crashing down on me. The man I had loved, the life I'd left behind, the uncertain future ahead. It all swirled together in a dizzying maelstrom. I clutched my textbook, my lifeline to the new world I was building. But for the first time since I'd left, I wondered if I had made the right choice. Had I been selfish, thinking only of my own happiness? As the night stretched on with no word from Henry or Mark, I paced my room, torn between my resolve to build a new life and the pull of the past. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. I stood outside the imposing doors of Anne and Henry's mansion, my heart pounding. The call had come an hour ago. Mark was here, and things had spiraled out of control. Taking a deep breath, I rang the doorbell. Henry answered, his face etched with worry. "Thank God you're here, Sophie. It's a disaster." As I stepped inside, raised voices echoed from the study. I recognized Mark's slurred speech and Anne's shrill tone. Henry led me to the door, hesitating before opening it. The scene that greeted me was chaos. Mark, disheveled and clearly drunk, was waving a stack of papers. Anne stood rigid, her face a mask of fury. Both fell silent as they saw me. "Sophie?" Mark stumbled towards me. "You came back?" Anne's eyes narrowed. "What is she doing here? Henry, how dare you involve her?" I held up my hand, silencing them both. "Enough. This ends now." Mark collapsed into a chair, while Anne glared at me defiantly. I turned to her, steeling myself. "Anne, I know about the financial fraud. I have proof of everything." Her face paled. "You're bluffing. You have nothing." I pulled out the USB drive Henry had given me. "Everything's here. The offshore accounts, the tax evasion, all of it." Mark looked up, confused. "What, Mother? What is she talking about?" Anne's composure cracked. "It was all for you, Mark, to secure your future, our family's legacy." I felt a surge of pity for Mark as realization dawned on his face. "You've been lying to me? All these years?" "I did what I had to do," Anne shouted. "This ungrateful woman was going to ruin everything we've built." I stepped between them. "No, Anne, you're the one who's been ruining everything. Your manipulation, your constant need for control. It's destroyed this family." Anne lunged for the USB drive, but I held it out of reach. "It's over, Anne. You have a choice. You can come clean, make amends, or I'll turn this over to the authorities." The room fell silent. Anne seemed to deflate before our eyes, suddenly looking every bit her age. I never meant for it to go this far," she whispered. Henry moved to her side, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We'll face this together, Anne. It's time to make things right." I turned to Mark, who looked lost and broken. "Mark, I'm sorry. For everything." He met my gaze, tears in his eyes. "No, Sophie. I'm the one who should be sorry. I let this happen. I wasn't strong enough to stand up to her, to be the husband you deserved." In that moment, I felt the last of my anger and resentment melt away. "We both made mistakes, Mark, but it's not too late to start over, on your own terms." As the weight of everything settled over us, I realized this was the moment I'd been waiting for, the chance to finally break free from the toxic patterns that had defined our lives for so long. I looked at each of them in turn. Anne, finally humbled, Henry standing tall for the first time, and Mark, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "This is your chance," I said softly, "all of you, to rebuild, to become the family you always could have been. But you have to do it yourselves. I can't be part of it anymore." Anne stepped forward, her voice barely a whisper. "Sophie, I'm sorry for everything." I nodded, accepting her apology, but knowing it couldn't undo years of pain. "I hope you find peace, Anne, all of you." As I turned to leave, Mark called out, "Sophie, wait. What about us?" I looked back at him, feeling a bittersweet mix of love and resolve. "There is no us anymore, Mark, but there can be a you, the real you, free from all of this. I hope you find him." Walking out of that house for the last time, I felt lighter than I had in years. The future stretched out before me, full of possibility and promise. My phone buzzed, a reminder for my first day of classes tomorrow. I smiled, realizing that for the first time in my life I was truly excited about what lay ahead. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror. The woman looking back at me was stronger, wiser, and finally genuinely happy. The road ahead was mine to choose, and I couldn't wait to see where it would lead.